With a good time.
Ooh, we're recording now.
Oh, okay. No,
You'd like this
but
blueberry beer.
I've had. I mean, there's a really good one here. Wachusett Blueberry in Mass, which is really good, made locally, and they sell it on draft in certain places you can get. I like that one. There's a few other good ones. The ones that aren't really over the top, like really pungent. There's another one that I had that was way too blueberry. Is that a word? Blueberry.
This one's very blueberry.
But that's like blueberry chocolate though.
So what it is, it's blueberry chocolate, coffee, and vanilla.
Ooh,
sour.
That's like all my These are a few of my favorite.
Mine too.
Yeah.
It tastes like, and the coffee is like a fucking aftertaste almost. Like, so you taste it after. The blueberry hits you first with the vanilla and the chocolate.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what it's like, but it's good.
You see ABT is live at P Ridge today.
Are they really?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's kind of cool.
Boy, Gary's down there doing a Facebook Live.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah,
that's a great little gig he has right there.
Oh yeah. Okay, so we are doing Civil War Breakfast Club Happy Hour number 29.
We're 29.
Yeah. Our usual banter.
Crazy numbers, right? Turning 30 next week. You know?
Well, I remember turning 30.
Do you? That's not long ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, well, they say life begins at 30, right? You know who says that? People who are 30.
Yeah. Life doesn't fucking begin at 30.
That sucks. Hey, you know what? You've had a good run.
Thanks.
You can't complain about it. But
I'm not fucking complaining about it.
I mean, you complaining on such an alien concept.
I know. Totally right. We are live right now.
It totally is. It totally is. But but it's good though. It's good. It's funny they're down there though. But it's definitely a cool little study though. It was fun doing that one.
No, it was like P Ridge was a great one because I admittedly didn't know a lot about it, and it was like I've become kind of like I want to learn more about Siegel now. Just
Franz Siegel.
Franz Siegel.
Like Siegel.
Just because he's this like politically appointed general, right? And I was thinking this morning, like that is one area where Abraham Lincoln doesn't get criticized enough.
You know that's gonna get people pissed off. But anyway,
these because some of the people he appointed were just absolute shit shows.
All right, well, that's the whole goddamn thing. Man, you ready to go here? What? Ready to go live here? What?
We are live right now.
You know, one of these days you're gonna tell me. Seriously.
I said I hit record, and
you said you hit record. It's whatever. Anyway, well, good morning.
As everybody comes in as we're bickering. Hey, Barbara. Hey, Ryan. Hey, Allie B. Hey, Lori.
Let's see. Well, that's interesting. I love how you do that. You just don't say anything. Good morning. But
I was putting the title in, and I said, "I'm."
Come on. Hey, whoa.
Hey, oh.
Hey.
Good morning, Jim. Good morning, Jacob.
Oh, good morning, everybody. What's happening? What's up, Biddles? You know what's so funny is I used to be happy when I see Facebook pictures from Gettysburg, and now I see them, I just get mad, bitter. And Biddles was there last week, and it was like a kick in the gut. I was like, oh my god! I know. But you know what? They'll pretty soon.
Yeah, exactly. Soon. Hey, Thomas. Hey, Howard. Hey, Snyder.
Hey.
I'd rather march Mitt Siegel than run Mitt Howard. Howard's better than Siegel.
Always assume you were alive. Yeah, you know what? That's the second week in a row you got me on that one, by the way.
I didn't get you on anything if you fucking pay attention every so often.
Okay, well, hey.
Hey, Wayne.
So strange for you to be in a mood.
Excuse me?
Going back to alcohol hasn't done you any favors, apparently. Anyway, so that's on that note. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. And yeah, but it was good. It was good. How you been? All right?
Oh yeah, I've been good. How about you?
I'm good. I'm very good. Very good. It's sunny out, although albeit very, very cold here in God's green earth of Cape Cod, Massachusetts, USA. And hopefully everything's on a good day. Yes, happy Boston's Riot Suppression Weekend. Yes, the Boston Marathon. God, Boston Massacre this weekend. And that's a cool little place to visit when you go see the site.
Yeah.
That whole little old town of Boston is actually really, really cool
I
place.
love Boston.
I enjoy it. I enjoy
It's my
going.
favorite American city. I love
Yeah,
Boston.
definitely. But anyway, yeah, good morning. Everybody jumping on early. It's good to see
Yeah,
everybody.
nice.
Hey, Mark. Good to see you again. Mark is
Hey,
in our
Mark.
class. He's one of our, in Lisa's class. She
Yeah.
should be coming along here soon. That's a fun little class, though. Good stuff.
Tony says he's working on my family tree. Oh, Howard and EP Alexander appear to be distant cousins. There's your friend EP,
Wow.
Darren.
Okay. And Howard, wow, there's a dream team right there.
Ooh.
That's bouncing balls and running.
Jeez. Good morning, Leonard.
And Tony, I'd like to thank you for bringing up Howard today, by the way, because I had 18 seconds of my on over under, so you just beat it, so that's great. Good to talk about well.
And I said I wasn't gonna try and like talk about him too much. Jesus.
No, you do you, absolutely.
Morning, Charles. Jacob said he's got a phone interview on Friday. Good luck with that.
Oh, cool, very cool. Yeah,
Awesome.
that's the way to do it now. Is that's how everybody, and people don't meet face to face anymore, and I think that's the way of the future anyway. Man, I think my work meetings, everything's on this Zoom thing now, and everything's in. It's just going to make it so much easier to deal with.
It's going to be a cost savings too, I think. But the other thing that it's done as well is this whole thing has opened up, opportunities for those of us that couldn't attend Civil War things before because they were in person. I've been able to attend like more lectures. I'm now part of a roundtable. It's just been really great. And I hope it sticks post-COVID because it's allowed so many people to become part of this stuff.
Well, that's how we got into Ed's roundtable, right?
Yeah.
The Chickamauga Chattanooga through the Zoom.
Yeah.
Remember the Alamo. My favorite line in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, by the way. So basement of the Alamo. Good morning, everybody. Mike in Arlington, Virginia. Cool little place. But yeah, so I thought we had a good podcast. That was a fun one. P Ridge is a cool battle, and we were saying, I don't know if we were live or not because someone in Fraulein over here didn't tell me.
Oh my god!
But we would talk about how ABT, Gary Edelman and the gang are down there this weekend doing some stuff with P Ridge, and that's it reminds me a little bit of Stones River and Franklin, whereas I just don't know why it's not mainstream because it really should be. I don't know if it's the Arkansas thing or the fact that Lee wasn't there or Grant wasn't there, but P Ridge is one that it should be studied closely because it had so many ramifications. It really did.
Yeah, and it's in between Henry and Donaldson and Shiloh, right? So you think about how different Shiloh might have been had Van Dorn been able to take St. Louis and link up with Albert Sidney Johnston. Quick question. Tony's wondering if either of us have read E.P. Alexander's memoirs.
I did. Fighting for the Confederacy. I did. It's a long read, but it's pretty good. And he's really interesting though because he talks about Peach Orchard and he says when they were beating them when Barksdale's guys had gone to the Peach Orchard and they got the artillery there, he thought the war was over. Mm-hmm. He says I thought because we saw the Union running, we thought the war was over. That's a good read. Alexander's read. He kind of went off the deep end there with a little bit. He was one of those ones who wanted to be one of those guerrilla guys and fight in the woods forever.
Yeah.
But it's a good book though. So Tony, good call on that one. But I think it's I think P Ridge is one that I just don't know why it's not studied more. And I've thought that before because we've all studied these battles and when we did this podcast this week, we were talking about it. I don't know if it's because no one really knows Sterling Price or Samuel Curtis or the guys like that, Alexander Asboth. These aren't exactly, kitchen table Civil War names, but they should be.
Oh, right? They should. The story, the battle is so fascinating. It's like, March 7th is like two battles on the same day being fought. One is at Leetown, the other is at Elkhorn Tavern, and then the next day with the artillery barrage, that Siegel, that's his shining point. And then you have Van Dorn, who doesn't hire staff and leaves his supply trains 6 miles back.
Well, we'll talk about all this, but I think before we forget, before this your morning beers kick into your little Canadian brain there, we should talk about what we're going to do for this roundtable next week because we have a quasi announcement we're going to make, right?
We do. So go ahead. You go ahead.
All right. So we are doing our St. Paddy's Day roundtable on St. Patrick's Day, which I think is still the 17th of March. I'm not sure, but I think it's still this, Mary. Okay.
It's a week from
this country. It is, right? Anyway, so we're going to go on. We're going to do our usual thing, but we decided, and we partnered with our friends over at the Abraham Lincoln Bookstore in Chicago to get some books. We are going to do a trivia contest, Mary.
Yeah.
And we're going to have probably the first hour or so, once everybody gets set up, we're going to do trivia. And then we're going to give away books to the winners. So our good friend Bjorn over there at the bookstore has hooked us up with a bunch of books, all kinds of. I got a box in the mail. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, and he was really awesome to do. And they're all like, they're older books and stuff, so they're things that you might not be able to find, elsewhere or whatever. But he was really awesome and hooked us up with some stuff. So, and yeah, Abraham Lincoln Bookshop, they do a lot of really great events, not just focused on Abraham Lincoln, but they have authors on to talk about their new books. I know they just had the author on from A Worse Place Than Hell, who wrote that new book about Fredericksburg, which I believe you have a copy of that one now.
Yeah, someone sent it to me. Some
Some
rando, But you know what though? It's going to be great because we're going to, once we get set up, we're going to do it. We're going to organize it well. Mary and I are going to come up with the questions. We're going to take turns doing questions. She's going to keep score because she's so good at the math. And then what we'll do is we will.
Shouldn't have told people I'm the one keeping score.
Tell me about it. So good luck, literally. And what'll happen is once we get done, we'll hang out a little bit until Ryan falls down, and then we'll all go home. That'll be the end of it. But
Ryan got a shout out at the end of the podcast.
He did. He's a celebrity now. But that'll be fun because we'll take about 10, 15, everybody gets set up. And then once we get in, we'll arrange it. We'll have our questions and we'll have fun. But that'll be fun. And hopefully everybody, this is going to be, no one's probably going out on St. Patty's Day this year. So this will be our St. Patty's Day little party. So we'll have fun with that. Yeah. We'll do some trivia, give away some books. And then we'll sit around and we'll just whatever, as long as everybody wants to stay on, nothing else to do, right?
Yep, exactly. No, we just wanted to do something a little bit different. So, and the trivia is going to be like just covering different years of the Civil War. So 1861, 62, 63, and then we're going to lump 64, 65 kind of in together. So
yeah, so we'll do it to your point annually, and then we'll make we'll figure out the question. We'll make it not too easy, not too hard. We'll make it right in the middle because we got the books to give away, so we'll do that. But that was cool. Thanks to Bjorn for doing that. Bjorn, I don't think he jumps on these.
No, sometimes I see him pop on, but I don't know if he will be.
But if he does, if you see a guy named Bjorn, there's only one Bjorn. Thank him.
Yeah, no, he's a really cool guy. He actually knows quite. We had him as a guest on Real Splitter podcast a couple years ago, and he talked a lot about his experiences. Like, I think he was like a guide at Shiloh at one point, so he knows quite a bit about the Battle of Shiloh.
Yeah, it's funny how people have that. So yes, right. I will have my Redbreast whiskey too. So we'll have that. But that'll be fun though. That'll be a good time to do some trivia. So we'll see how we're gonna maneuver that one off. We'll see how.
Jacob, hey Mayor, there's a free history book T-shirt for you if you fudge the score for me.
Yeah, I think he meant that as a direct message, but it's okay. Everybody's seeing now. So now he's gonna win, and he's gonna be all We'll ask all kinds of questions about the North Carolina battle. That's what.
Yeah.
We'll jump ahead of Bentonville a little bit. Talk about Bentonville and the Sharknado and the boat exploding and all that stuff. So anyway, so that's the big announcement for that. So we'll be doing that on the round table. So that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that. Trivia is cool.
No, I love trivia. It's a lot of fun.
It reminds me though of the time I got screwed at Sharpshooters in Gettysburg that time when I was involved in that trivia contest with all those battle guides people.
Oh yeah.
And I won, and I got screwed on a technicality, and I finished second.
So that happened to us in Real Splitter too. We did a trivia night with actually Bo, who pops on here from time to time. We were on a team together, and there was one question that I don't know how we got screwed, but we got screwed out of first place.
Is this going to be Barbara? No, we do it on a Zoom thing, right? The round.
Yeah, Barbara. It's via Zoom. So if you just send us, and I'll tweet about this too and put it on our social media. Just email us at info@civilwarbreakfastclub.com if you've never attended before, and then I'll make sure you get the Zoom invite for it. Mayor, I can tempt you with a drawing of Oliver Otis Howard. Give me some extra points.
I can see your question now. On a scale of 0 to awesome, where is Oliver Otis Howard? First answer wins. If you were stuck on a desert island and only could be with one historical person, who would it be, and why would it be Oliver Otis Howard?
Jesus.
Fucker. But for real, it'll be a real trivia question. So it'll be good. So we'll see how wicked smart you all are with that. Yeah. So
Speaking of Howard, I do want that one meme you did this week on a shirt with the boat. The boop.
Oh yeah. That's stuff we do. But anyway, so that'll be fun. We'll look forward to doing that. That'll be a lot of fun. So if you haven't, most people on this are on the thing, but if you haven't done it yet, definitely send the email to the info at Civil Breakfast Club, and we'll get you hooked up for that. But I'm looking forward to that. And then we have the book club the following week there.
Yep, that'll be a good time too. Snyder, does the take a shot every time Mayor says Howard still apply during trivia?
It applies to every aspect of life, Snyder. Trust me.
Said I was going to try and not talk about him.
I'm a general from Maine with one arm. Who am I? I am awesome. It's funny because it's true. But anyway, so Pea Ridge. How about Pea Ridge? So we had a lot of fun doing that one.
Yep.
That was when like we were saying before we went off the rail here was why this battle should be really, anybody who's studied Pea Ridge, and I think most people here probably do. You see how important it was and how good of a battle it was and how the intrigue was and how you had different people stepping in. And I mean, you had the Indian brigades with Pike. You had all these people, guys getting killed and recon missions. And there was a lot of cool stuff with this one. And I think if this was one that was fought in the East, it'd be a much bigger deal. I think the fact that it was north of Fayetteville, Arkansas, in the middle of nowhere, I think was a big part of it.
Well, like the Western Theater and the Trans-Mississippi Theater, it's like, kind of the island of misfit toys of the Civil War, and it just doesn't get talked about as much. And some people will lump Trans-Mississippi in with the Western Theater too, which I think you need to make that distinction. There's, I don't know, unpopular opinion, there's 3 Civil War theaters, East, West, Trans-Mississippi.
Yeah, and this is the one that kind of gets the shit into the stick a little bit. And I think we said, like on the podcast, I think one of us said, I think it was that there was no Robert E. Lee here. There was no Jackson. There was no Grant. There was no Sherman.
Yeah.
And so you have to really get into the weeds. And it's one of those ones we've talked about a million times before, but these battles lead to these other bigger battles. Yep. There is a direct correlation. This is just as important as what Donaldson and Henry were as far as future Shiloh, right?
Yep.
Because if Van Dorn does take Mississippi, how does that affect Shiloh, right?
Yeah.
Because now Halleck's going to leave troops. Won't be able to take troops out to strengthen that whole situation in Cairo. Jeez, I'll screw that up, Mary. Jeez.
Leonard will be on you about that one.
Tell me about it. He's already I already got 3 memes out on that one already.
I'm shocked he hasn't mentioned the rolling hills that I talked about with Franz Siegel in the podcast.
Yeah, I don't know he must be with
rolling hills.
Yeah, whatever.
Even Siegel's a rolling hills guy.
You want to associate with Franz Siegel now? Okay, all yours. The guy who got lost in the rolling hills, the guy who ran from Wilson's Creek. That's the guy you're going to hang with now?
No.
I'd like to make an announcement. I have a new favorite general. Not the 11th Corps general you think. But seriously though, I think when you start to study some of these guys, and what name keeps coming up on the Union side, which is really good, that again no one talks about, is Peter Osterhaus, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean,
he's one of the rock stars in this battle too.
Well, I think he's Prussian. He's not American. That's probably a big part of it.
Yeah.
But he's somebody who keeps coming up, right? Yeah. And he always seems to do well, right? And he always has good guys with him. He has Nicholas Grissel with him in this time, who really stabilizes that line in Oberson's field. It's just a very interesting battle, for a battle that doesn't have a lot of the big names in it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, and I think there's some comments about that. Jim said there needs to be more books about Pea Ridge. Ryan actually makes mention the 4th theater of the Civil War is the Blue Water. So the kind of the Navy, their role in it too.
Yeah,
could be another.
They always get the crappy end of the stick too, the Navy.
Yeah,
I mean, I've always liked the river battles more so. I think because it's more of it's just I don't know why it's better, but I mean, there's not a lot of talk about the Hunley outside of South Carolina. You got the Battle of the Ironclads, you got all that crap. But people don't realize that the United States overnight had the strongest army in the world because of the Civil War, and that scared the piss out of England, Ryan. Just so you know, if you guys were thinking of coming back, you stopped at that point.
And Jacob says, that's the reason why it's not talked about. No Lee, no Stonewall, no attention. That's so true. This battle, like Pea Ridge, is a very, very important battle. But again, it's kind of just cast aside because it doesn't have kind of the quote unquote the celebrities of the Civil War, right? The names that are most well known. But like you said, Osterhaus is here, and he's going to shine later at Chattanooga, the battles for Chattanooga, and then too, you have, I don't know, there's just characters at this battle, and there's infighting as well happening on both sides.
Well, there's always infighting.
So
for all the stuff we talked about, we mentioned Grant and Rosecrans. We talk all these guys all the time, but it seems like every episode of every battle on the Confederate side is an episode of the Golden Girls. Every one of them.
Oh yeah.
Right. There's always, this one, you got McCullough, and you got Price, and you got these guys who just don't get along. Right. I mean, we saw how it, with Pillow and Buckner at Fort Donelson, is how the infighting. But you know what though? This is the one thing you have to give Van Dorn credit for, is he did get them together and say, cut the shit. I know you hate each other. Play nice for a little while, because this is what we want to do. And they seem to do it, right? They teamed together to hate Earl Van Dorn's plan, even, which is kind of funny. But that's how it was. And the other thing that was cool about this battle was Albert Pike.
Yeah.
Getting involved. Just because it's Albert Pike is somebody who was big in other aspects of life, and him getting involved in this was pretty cool to see.
Absolutely, yeah. No, and Ryan brings up a good point. This battle is very 48 Europeans: Siegel, Osterhaus, Asbach. So you had these men that had fought in the revolutions.
Yeah,
I guess the revolution over in Europe, and it's very, like, I think we said, it's very international. Like you have German Siegel, Prussian Osterhaus.
Let me ask you a question, Mary.
Hungarian Asbach.
Say we're sitting at the mine someday, okay, tipping back a few cold Yinglings, okay. Sounds like a German beer, but it's not, by the way. And you ask some random barfly, what is Franz Siegel's greatest moment? Okay, they're never going to say Pea Ridge. You know why? Because no one knows he had a good moment.
No one does.
Right? Because they just don't. I don't know if they just don't want to ever give him credit. But you think of Franz Siegel, you think of him bitching because he didn't get the commission twice, right?
Yep.
You think of him taking off from Wilson's Creek, which he deserves a credit for. I mean, for that.
Oh yeah,
but
getting lost.
And he didn't even want that artillery gig at Pea Ridge. He didn't.
But he took it and he handled it.
He took it and he crushed it, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
And it was a big moment. Now, did he get lost in the woods that night? Yeah,
of course he did.
Okay, because he's still Franz Siegel, But again, he's someone who, I don't think, because this country has a great reputation of dealing with foreigners and never really has.
Yeah.
I think that's a big reason historically why he doesn't get credit for it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Franz Siegel's good, because he's really not.
No, he's not. He's the typical political general. He had
a really good moment there though. And he was someone who, the Douglas Southall Freemans of the world, who write glowingly about Pickett's charge, that what they did with the artillery for 2 hours and then their charge was textbook for what they did. I mean, Lee couldn't pull it off at Gettysburg, but he certainly did at Pea Ridge.
Yeah, like 2 hour barrage is what Siegel does. It's heard from 50 miles away. There's, what is it, 3,600 rounds?
3,600 shots, a shot of every I forget the math, but it was 3,600 shots. I mean, and we talked before in this live about the smoke and all that stuff, what that must have been. The same deal, but to fire that many, and unlike Gettysburg, that barrage completely scuttled the Confederate artillery. It had them running.
Yeah.
You had Earl Van Dorn looking for his first horse to get the hell out of there. And
but the other thing too is Van Dorn ran out of ammo because he didn't have the fucking supply trains, and nobody thinks to go back the night before to get them because they're 6 miles back and nobody knows where the hell they are. Like, so then he just takes off, and his men hated him for that. But then Van Dorn finally has his shining hour in the cavalry at Holly Springs, right?
Yeah. I mean, he did. I mean, that was his big moment at Holly Springs, and that was his thing. But the funny part about Van Dorn, we talked about him, was he someone he thought he was a second coming of William Wallace. I mean, he just was.
Oh, that speech he gives.
My God, the whole thing he says, and he legitimately thought he was there to save the day. And
yeah,
I mean, you can see why the women liked him though. I mean, he was brash, confident. I'm just saying it.
I
mean, I
know.
mean, he was a cavalry guy by training.
Yeah.
He was cocky. He was arrogant. Who
Yeah.
knows what else he could do? He knew his way around the ass factory, Mary. Okay, but he certainly had that panache that he needed to succeed. And the funny part about it was, usually these soldiers really enjoy a confident leader. They didn't like him because they thought he was full of shit. They thought he was delusional.
Well, yeah, and then he runs away, and he doesn't have his management of kind of the administrative side of things is shitty because he doesn't hire staff to do it. And then they don't go for the trains when they need to. And so they basically have to evacuate the dance floor. And he fucks off before his men. Ali B said the speech was hilarious. It's very hard not to laugh while you're reading it. Yeah, Darren did
Beautiful maidens of Louisiana, smile not on the craven youth that may linger by your hearth. Like, can you imagine someone saying that to you? Like, this is the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through. What do you want?
Drive up, fucker.
Yeah, drive up. But the funny part about it is, I don't know if I mentioned this in the podcast or not, but the people who just were rolling their eyes. They weren't like, yeah.
Yeah,
they were just kind of like, what? No, what? But these are all new soldiers for the most part.
Yeah.
Too. None of these guys have really seen battle. But you think that'd even be more of a reason to get all fired up? But they were like, this guy's full of shit.
Yeah. Well, and there had just been so many changes, right? But Bragg and Heath offered the job, and then both being like, nope. You're third. Van Dorn is third.
It is interesting though. I'd love to be a fly on the wall when Jefferson Davis heard from Braxton Bragg that he didn't want that gig. Heath, I get. Heath was more of an. I get the Heath one, but why Bragg wouldn't? Because that's an opportunity to succeed, right? Now, eventually he ended up taking over the Tennessee, all that stuff, but this was his opportunity to take over the Army, an Army all by himself, with very little political input. He had no real people that were really going to push him, but he didn't want it.
No, and Van Dorn's the third one. You gotta wonder if the men knew that this is this is not the second guy that was offered it. This is the third one.
I wonder if that when that stuff like that comes out though, if it comes out during or after, because there was that story at the end where that one soldier was basically blaming Van Dorn.
Oh yeah, the guy that got arrested, where he's like, Dorn was whipped.
He's like, we weren't whipped, he was.
Yeah,
and the guy got arrested for it. I mean,
Van Dorn.
But I think that was more of a shot to his ego than anything. I think if McCullough hadn't run into Osterhaus, okay, at that Foster's Farm area on the 7th at the beginning part of the battle, and he was able to connect McDonough to connect with Van Dorn. Now again, they didn't think the Union was there. They thought they were going to go there and hang out and then kind of work their way. But I wonder how that might have been different. But this is a case where Osterhaus really kind of saved the day a little bit.
Yeah.
Not just because he beat up McCullough, killed McIntosh, but because he kept them away from Van Dorn. And Van Dorn didn't know what happened until the next day. So he's sitting around waiting on a Saturday night with no one calling, wondering what happens.
Him call me Mary.
I mean, he was probably worried, wondering what was going on, Then he found out the next day that he was just, fell off the table, and that was it. Then it was all supposed to be just forgotten about. But seriously though, it really saved the day a lot of the cases, because it really put a crimp on the dick of Earl Van Dorn by not having McCullough there. It did.
That's a new one on the show. Crimp in the dick.
No, dude. It's true though.
What was McCullough doing in the woods? Shy bladder.
That's probably the truth of what it was. It was kind of like the missing page of the Booth Diary. I still say it was toilet paper.
Oh God! But he's out scouting because he's a Texas Ranger.
Well, he's a Texas Ranger,
and he did the scouting on his own. So he thought that would be a good idea. Apparently, it wasn't. He told his other guys to stay back because they were all on gray horses and they would be seen by the Union. So obviously,
McCullough's riding on this. They said he had this real dark suit on, so it wasn't like a Confederate. He had some kind of dark suit, and the soldiers said that Grusel's army said that he was basically silhouetted perfectly with the suit on the horse with the sky. He was an easy target. And that guy, Private Pelican, shot him through the heart.
Pelican.
He got shot by a pelican. And then, you know, you have McIntosh, who's a cavalry guy, going to look for him and see what's going on. He gets popped.
Yeah, 200 yards from where
It's almost,
he was popped.
it reminds me a little bit of the story with Hazlitt and Stephen Weed at Gettysburg, where one gets shot, the other goes and finds him, and he gets shot. I mean, it wasn't right next to him, but it reminded me a little of that story.
Yeah.
But what that does, it puts Louis Haybear in a really shitty situation.
He has no idea, because they did what Beauregard is going to do in a month at Shiloh, and that's when Albert Sidney Johnston gets cut down. And Beauregard's like, we can't tell them.
Well, they have,
anybody.
He's got 9 regiments.
Yeah.
9? Ferris Bueller? 9 times? So he gets 9 regiments, and they've got to split up 4 and 5 because there's so many, right? So Haybear is going to take that left side, and McCullough's going to take the right side. But there's no communication between the two, right? Yeah. You hit that yawn very well, by the way. Very, very well.
I'm not bored.
Oh, no. Anyway, by all means.
Keep going.
But there was no communication between the two, so Haybear was supposed to move forward, but he's waiting for McCullough to give him the order. Now McCullough obviously goes down, he goes up the spout, doesn't make it. And so he's sitting around, and he finally decides, he hears the gunfire from his right side and says, I better friggin' do something. So he ends up moving forward. By then, Osterhaus is able to get the rest of his troops with him, so it really screws that whole thing up. And again, some of these battles, you just got to get lucky. You just do.
Yep.
Because the number superiority they had, the Confederates had, they should have walked right through them.
Well, they should. They should. But there's a lot of
Grissel stabilizing that line. But Osterhaus being able to hold that Oberson's field, they never should have done that. The Rebs should have gone right through them. Yeah. But again, you're running out of time, and you have shitty leaders and shitty command. That's what happens, right? Sorry, I'm pointing, by the way.
Don't point.
Cog.
Wondered when you were going to finally do that.
But seriously, though, it really is. It really is goes to show the command and control that they all had, but especially the Confederates, though.
But the thing that I noticed is that, what Osterhaus is doing with being able to hold back, or keep the Confederates at bay, is a lot like what Buford does at Gettysburg on the first day.
Isn't it funny how a lot? I mean, I know we always go back to Gettysburg.
But did you see the parallels with other battles that this one?
Oh yeah, there was a whole bunch.
So many of them, and that's why I'm shocked it's not studied more.
Well, that's what I was going with this. Okay, I probably said that you probably weren't paying attention, but it seems like a lot of these battles are mini versions of themselves, of these bigger ones.
Yeah,
this one has so many Gettysburg parallels in it. So many. It's got so many other ones too, but you think of Buford, right? That first day on the ridges on west of town. You think of that little mini Pickett's charge they had with Siegel, right? There's so many they had, but again, what dooms these armies, the battle that the team that loses, because there are 2 good armies in the field. I mean, they are, right?
Yeah.
The side that loses, it seems, is usually because of bad communication with the leaders, or some sort of in-house, some type of thing.
Yeah.
Bad directions, bad communications, bad leadership, just a shitty failure of command, really. But it should be no surprise with Van Dorn, because he had no. You didn't have an Albert Sidney Johnston there or Robert E. Lee there. I mean, I wonder if they had a legit guy in control.
Yeah. But again, this goes back to, and Jacob mentions this, no one does failure in command like the Confederates. I think it goes back to...
It was on both sides, though.
It absolutely was on both sides. But on the Confederate side, you have Jeff Davis appointing his friends, into these high up commands. And then if he doesn't like you, he takes it personally.
Or his nephew, Joseph Davis, right?
Yep. Exactly.
Nepotism.
Like, pardon?
As a nepotism, like with Joseph.
Mm-hmm. Like and he's like,
I don't know if you heard of him, Joseph Davis. He fought.
I have.
Paying attention. I can share. Go on.
Anyway, lost my train of thought.
The train doesn't go far, but it's okay. Why I'm giving you a hard time today. You know what? You give me a hard time all the time. So I'm gonna give it back to you a little bit today.
What?
No, not even a little bit. Tony mentioned the supply trains, and he's right. I mean, that supply train fiasco is a perfect example of the failure of leadership that Van Dorn had.
Yeah, it doesn't have staff to look after.
But you know what, though? The thing about it, the night of the 7th, and this is what that blows my mind. The night of the 7th, right?
Yeah.
they discover at that campfire, must have been a hell of a campfire, right? The s'mores run out. They had to start talking to each other, right?
Yeah.
They go, we just found out that McCullough's dead. He's dead. McIntosh, he's dead too. Because, oh, and by the way, we don't know where the supply trains are. And Van Dorn says, okay, well, let's go to bed. We'll wake up tomorrow morning. We'll go find them. He doesn't even say, oh shit,
Let's
we
go
better
look
go find this.
now.
He waits till morning, right? Now this is where everything is. This is where the ammo is, the clothes, the food, all the ho-hos, all the stuff they need for young and growing army. But they wait till the next day, and the next day is when Siegel's artillery assault happens.
Yeah, and they don't have time to go get it, and they run out of ammo too.
They have no time to get it, right?
Yeah, it's just such a shit show.
But then it's so fun. But then the funny thing is Van Dorn, he decides he goes to Sterling Price, and they decide the best thing to do in the middle of the battle, at the end when they realize they were going to lose, is leave.
Yeah, they just take off down that road.
They go Thelma and Louise together right off the end. See you later. They just go. The end of Good Will Hunting. Matt Damon. They jumped in the car and they went.
Yep, bye.
And he wonders why people blame him for it afterwards.
Yep.
Right?
Well, it's so, I don't know. It's again, I think it's, on Jeff Davis, these people who he's putting in command. Jacob just mentions that Jeff Davis and Bragg actually had a fight when Davis was still Secretary of War, which is interesting. But I mean, they're still friends. And Davis is putting his friends in place. And then, he takes someone like Joseph E. Johnston out in 1964 and replaces him with John Bell Hood because he doesn't want Beauregard in charge. He doesn't want, and Hardy was asked, but Hardy was like, nope. I'm not
both Lincoln and Davis fell out of love very quickly. Yeah. They did. There was always a new shiny toy, right?
Yeah.
And Davis had more patience than Lincoln did, right?
He did.
Especially in the East,
Yeah.
No, I mean, he knew he had something in Grant and Sherman in the West. Yeah. But even that was questioned because Halleck was fighting to get Grant out. Even after Fort Henry, you wanted Grant out.
Exactly. They take things so personally. It's like so Mean Girls, like high school drama that girls always go through. It's what's happening with these men in the Civil War. And
yeah.
But Lincoln, the one thing, like I said at the beginning of this, that he doesn't get criticized for, and he should, is the appointment of political generals, because they do fuck things up.
They do, though. I mean, but not all of them did. I mean,
no, not all of them did.
He did pretty well.
There was some good ones, but you look at somebody like, McClernand, Franz Siegel, and there's other ones too, like politically appointed. And Grant didn't like them because they were politically appointed. Mm-hmm. And they were getting there just based on someone does them a favor kind of thing.
Leonard's going to head out. Leonard, I think you just got a haircut, didn't you? Did I see you have a haircut? I don't know. Well, enjoy your haircut. I thought you just had one. That's pretty sad. Ignores people's haircuts, by the way.
You can partial blame Bragg for Hood too.
Oh, Jacob's bashing Bragg. He
actually likes Bragg a little bit more than he.
I know, that's what I mean. He's gone the other side of that. But no, we talk about the Hood thing in Atlanta over and over and over and over again, right? Mm-hmm. What a complete. It just
disaster.
If you study that and you study that decision, of all the decisions you can criticize Jefferson Davis on, that's the biggest one in my opinion.
Lincoln must have just been so happy.
Lincoln was like, thank you. Because now he knows in Sherman that there's going to be an aggressive guy. And now they can play defense, and they're going to force them out.
Yeah.
Because they were going to have to siege Atlanta, and that would have taken forever. All they had to do was run the clock out to the 1864 election.
Johnston knew that. Joseph E. Johnston knew that. They all knew it. And that made Sherman nervous because.
And eventually, Lincoln was going to say, I need you to go full banana on Atlanta and go and take it.
Yeah.
I need you to go 28-3 Tom Brady on Atlanta here, because if you don't, I'm going to lose this election. Right? He would have to have. And that would have been right into Johnston's hands. Right? I mean, Atlanta, the traffic sucks. It would take them forever to get through there.
You look at, as soon as Hood is put in command, Sherman goes to his classmates, Schofield as well as McPherson, and says, okay, tell me about this guy. And Schofield's like, he'll fight. He's stubborn and he's going to fight. And Sherman's like, good, that's what I want.
Yeah,
He
he they,
knew Johnston.
can you
To run the clock
imagine the
down.
full rail splitter he had in his friggin' in his pantaloons when he found out they had an aggressive guy coming at him instead of a Johnson who's going to make him fight and force him to be offensive?
Oh, he was just
Because
happy about it.
Sherman was not. I mean, he didn't like to do the full frontals anyway, Jacob. Okay,
Who does?
but he wanted to flank and bob and weave and play defense a
Yep.
lot apart. He didn't want to, he didn't want to do that, and he basically forced him to make him come out, and that played right into their hands. Oh my
Exactly.
God, they're playing into their hands.
Yeah,
You know,
it did. Like that was probably the worst decision Jeff Davis made. He, like you said, run the clock down. He could have
that's
done
all they had to do.
I know.
You're up 30-0 in a football game in the second half. You run the ball. You don't let the clock run. You let
Yep.
the clock is on your side. I know we're going off on a lamb. How
No.
we're talking about this one,
No.
Um,
Jim says installing your friends to high positions which they were not qualified is the definition of bad leadership. For the sake of their cause, Jefferson Davis should have appointed the right men to the right places. By not doing so, he is largely at fault for the defeat of the Confederacy. Oh, he is, and he's a micromanager too. He's a total, but Lincoln was as well at times.
they all did, because I mean, Lincoln, any politician, you look at U.S. Grant later on,
Yeah.
is what got him ultimately his downfall as president, was he promised too many favors to too many people, right?
Yeah, and people who were corrupt.
And you look. I mean, I hate to say it, but can you imagine how many people Mary Lincoln talked to during the day about people like favors as far as political appointments? Same with Julia Grant, and they both looked at those guys and like, oh, they're gonna be president someday. Oh,
yeah,
like that meme with the guy behind the tree, right? That was both of them right there, right? And so how many favors and how many promises did you make? I mean, we kind of briefly mentioned Gabriel Paul a little while ago.
Yeah,
his wife, when he was a colonel, kept nagging Lincoln at the White House all the time to make Gabriel a general. Finally, he said, "Fuck it, fine." And he's a general. Now, who's to know that's exactly the reason why?
Yeah.
But Gabriel Paul was made a general. He ultimately got a really horrific wounding at Oak Hill at Gettysburg. But that was a big part of it. How many favors do you have? And it's hard. I mean, even these politicians nowadays, anybody who's elected president makes it by promises they make to people.
Yeah, there was so many favors handed out during the Civil War, and when Lincoln was elected president, I mean, that's why Simon Cameron becomes Secretary of War to begin with, is because of a favor. Like.
Yeah.
And Jacob said, Least Davis had military experience. He was awful, but you can understand Jeff Davis being a micromanager more than Abe. Yeah, they both were. Like Lincoln, especially early in the war, was.
Well, Lincoln had a little bit of military experience.
Yeah, Black Hawk War.
Say it.
I did. Black Hawk War.
That's
a room at the ass factory in Bang Barn, isn't it? The Black Hawk,
where you could recklessly expose yourself. But they had a little bit. But he's right though. Jefferson Davis did have experience. He had a lot more experience, and so he had more of a pulse. But it seemed like when nobody meddled more than Jefferson Davis did. But I think he had a little more cachet as far as that. Lincoln, I mean, you think about all the stuff he did during the Peninsula Campaign, because he was obsessed with chasing Stonewall Jackson down. He really fucked McClellan hard.
He did.
And people are always going to blame McClellan, and a lot of it's justifiably so. But if you're McClellan, of course you hate Lincoln.
Well, yeah,
because for everything we talk about with Van Dorn, nobody had a bigger ego than George McClellan, right?
Oh no,
he can see the spires of the churches in Richmond, and he loses a bunch of his army to go chase down Jackson in the friggin' valley.
Yeah,
and now he doesn't have guys to take it, and he gets pushed back by Lee. Because Joseph Johnson gets shot at at 7. It's. So you could, I mean, you may not agree with it, but you can see the thinking, right? Yeah. And if you're McClellan, right, you don't respect Lincoln anyway, for the same reason we just talked about. He's not a military guy for the most part. He's a meddling president with no military experience. Yeah. Same thing would happen today. If it was
exactly. Absolutely, it would have. And I mean, McClellan has his faults. He really does. But he doesn't deserve all the blame that he gets after Antietam. Like, it seems like he shoulders all that. And it's like, when you have people like George Meade writing his wife saying, we don't have supplies.
Well, Lincoln changed his tune, I think, after Atlanta was, but definitely after March to the Sea with Sherman. Because once Sherman showed up in Savannah and captured Savannah, Lincoln was like, you know what, boys, you do you, right?
You do you, yep.
He kind of stopped. But before that, the first half of the war, I mean, he did. But you know what, though? This was his legacy, and this, I mean, he would have been known as the president who lost the country.
Yep.
So I mean, so he, of course, he's going to do what he thinks is right. And,
yep.
But still, I mean, he did. But he wised up, though.
Yeah, he did. He learned as he went. Like Jacob made a point that like Lincoln learned, and he had to. And I mean, he did go to read stuff about military so he could understand it. But I think he had that just, you know, it's very telling when John Reynolds is offered the position of the AOP, and he's like, I'm not doing this because you're going to be in my face too much.
Can you imagine if Halleck got his way and they got rid of Grant after Henry? You want to talk about a frigging what if?
Oh, fuck.
Right? Because Grant and Sherman, but especially Grant, was that stabilizing force in that part of the theater that allowed Lincoln to kind of back off. The war would still be going. Well, some people think it still is.
Yeah. Tony makes a good point. He says Lincoln not sending letters to Meade was the beginning of him not micromanaging. I think we mentioned that in an episode, didn't we? That was when Lincoln kind of had his, oh shit, I have been micromanaging these guys and I need to back off a little bit.
You know how Twitter announced that they're going to do that thing where you can send a tweet and you have like a minute to think about it?
Yeah.
That's kind of what Lincoln did with Meade, especially on the retreat from Gettysburg.
Yeah.
You know, like he had that whole thing. He was hitting your head. You just had to grasp your thing. But that's kind of what it was. But I think look, everybody learns through experience. You start a new job, 4 years in, you're going to be better than when you first started, right? And that's how it was. But he definitely learned. But give Lincoln credit, he did learn though.
He did. No, he absolutely did. He learned and he grew as president in many different ways, and definitely the management of the army or learning how to, you know, kind of step back was a huge one, to not be so in their faces. And I think he had moments that just, he's finally writing that, he's, you know, having that moment as he's writing into Meade and say, oh shit, you know, Reynolds brought this up. McClellan brought it up. Yeah. I am too much in their faces, and maybe I do need to step back and let them do their thing because this is what they're trained for. Bringing it back to Pea Ridge though for a second. Ryan said that there's many Europeans fighting in the battle, because he said Schaefer's from Baden, Mazaros was Hungarian, his dad was a minister of war, Siegel's chief of staff, Captain von, I cannot say that name, Kilmansage was a Hanoverian.
We call people like those names, we call them eye chart.
Yeah. His uncle had a brigade under Wellington at Waterloo. Yeah, I think we did mention international battle.
Schaefer's in that 3rd division with what's his name, with Asboth, right? That's you know. So, but he was.
Got Ass Factory on your mind?
But exactly. No, but he's Alexander Asboth, and he you know, he has a prominent place in this too. And you hear a lot of guys like Frederick Schaefer. He's another guy you never hear about. But you know, so 1 in every 4 soldiers in the Union Army was from somewhere else in this country. 1 in every 4. Germans, Ireland, wherever. Some Canadians here and there probably. You know,
yeah, there was.
Look at maple syrup and friggin' Labatt's. You know. You know, but I think a lot of that is part of the you know, the attitude of the time. Yeah. And it's why your boy Howard gets whacked all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, if he was in charge of the 3rd Corps, the 5th Corps, and he didn't have the jury, that's a big.
Well, I mean, he technically should have got the position over Sickles. You know, he should have been appointed before Sickles, and that's why Howard finally spoke up after Fredericksburg and was like, "Hey, I'm over here. You give Sickles a command, you got to give me one too." And Siegel just happened to be like, "Fuck you guys, I'm going. You're not going to give me a bigger command."
Well, so. Sickles did raise his own regiment, his own brigade, the whole thing with the Excelsiors. I mean, say what you will about Sickles, because he had his, you know,
he was a good politically appointed general.
But he knew how to do it though. He knew how to set it up, right? So, I mean, you know, Siegel didn't have a leg to stand on. He was really popular. He was really popular with the Germans in Missouri, and he was really popular with them.
And he did bring a lot of them into the army, and he was a supporter of Abraham Lincoln. So that's why he got the political appointment, because Lincoln saw the men rallying around Siegel, and he was a good rallying point for the Germans. And Lincoln knew that he had to be friendly with the international community.
But don't you think, though, let's pretend for a second, go to Chancellorsville, talk about OO here for a second. I know you're dying to talk about
Ooh.
it. Okay.
Everyone take a drink.
God. Anyway, don't you think if that was, say, the third corps, say it was Sickles, but it was Howard running, it was all Americans, and they still fled, he wouldn't have the reputation he did. Because he's not the first corps commander to run.
No.
Right? And in his defense, he was told that Stonewall Jackson was retreating by Sickles. To set, now they weren't ready for the attack, and a deer running through the camp probably should have tipped them off that people are coming. But again, that's part of the whole history thing. And again, you look at East Cemetery Hill, Gettysburg on July 2nd. They're told, those artillery guys, Weidrich's battles, they're told, you stay here, you die here, because the 11th Corps, if you're attacked, is going to run. So you're going to have to stay and fight these guns to the end. That's what they were told, right? And mainly the 11th Corps actually helped stabilize. A lot of those infantry helped stabilize against Hayes, Louisiana, as the Tigers, Mary, LSU, right?
Yeah.
Sherman's old school. But he helped stabilize that side of it. So they really didn't run. But that goes to show the reputation they had going into it. They were told,
the 11th Corps had kind of a misfit reputation.
I mean, their
before
corps
Howard took it over.
I mean, their emblem should have been a Nike swish. If you really think about it, instead of that moon, Mary.
Well, if you turn the moon a certain way, it does look
kind of it's right what it is. But seriously, they were told, if things get shitty here, they're going to run. And this is only a few months before, but that's the reputation they had.
Yeah.
Right.
So they went into it with that reputation, and Howard already was kind of a, didn't really fit in anyway, because being the Christian general and all that was not really being religious. I think in the Union Army was a lot different than the Confederate Army. Like religion was seen as different on both sides, and I think that like Howard's criticized for it. Like John Gibbon makes a joke that when Howard goes to command the 11th Corps, John Gibbon makes a joke something about like, oh, I guess we can finally party again now or whatever. Well, even because he's not here anymore.
You look at Hancock, right? He's telling Samuel Carroll, listen, when the 11th runs, I need you to go up there before it even starts, right? I mean, Carroll does ultimately go up there and help stabilize East Cemetery Hill in the second, but the 11th Infantry didn't run. They really didn't. They actually did a pretty good job there. Yeah. And so I don't know if this was trying to a reputation rebuilding or what, but that was the mentality, right? So and that sticks in history.
Yeah, but it does, right? Von Gilsa's after battle report does not help Howard's case either, because I think he lays the blame all on.
Well, you think of how big reputation was. You think of George Lamb Willard, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he gets completely pantsed at Harper's Ferry, gets that Harper's Ferry Cowards nickname, and he basically marches his troops to the death to help get rid of that nickname, including himself. He gets his head shot off with a shell.
Well, there's a lot. Right? I think there's some of that goes on in this war. This thing to kind of prove yourself again, and we talked about that with at Battle of Franklin with Claiborne, that he was really.
Check off on the Mary Bingo card, Claiborne. Go on.
Everybody has their binkies, fucker.
You certainly know.
Anyway, we talked about with Claiborne at Franklin how he was criticized by Hood, saying that his men had they were the reason they were having to go fight at Franklin, because they didn't hear Schofield's troops going by. So then you think that Claiborne maybe was running into battle like he did because he's like, fuck this, I'm going to show this guy that my men and I are not like
Mary,
this.
Was trying to tell us somewhere that Claiborne was really bad because of that.
Yeah, that's right too.
Yeah, I remember that.
I do too.
So many names here, but somebody was giving us some grief.
Yeah.
And he probably did. You're right. When he did attack that night, he cost him his life. It probably was. I think reputation was so big back then. Now people tend to roll off their back a little bit. Yeah. But back then, your name and your reputation was everything, especially in the Army.
Yeah.
And if you felt that you were responsible, now look, John Bell Hood, he should be blaming Claiborne for for that.
Hood blamed all the dead guys, the ones that couldn't speak after that battle. But two, there's the whole, like, you have to wonder just going back to Chancellorsville and the 11th Corps and all that, how bad the reputation was, because Sherman, when Howard goes out west, Sherman writes him this letter saying, you know, I'm happy to have you as part of this. Like you do have talent, and basically, I think reassuring Howard, Chancellorsville's not coming with you. You know.
Yeah, and Ryan mentions Dick Garnett. He's another one. So he gets blamed for Kernstown by by Stonewall, which he shouldn't have, because I was so unprepared for that one.
I don't like Stonewall.
And he ends up, he gets kicked by the horse, and he has to ride the horse at Gettysburg. Well, he did. That's why he rode the horse at Gettysburg. I don't know what's going on with the horse, but he got kicked. He got his leg injured, so he couldn't walk. But it was a reputation builder. He knew he had to go across that field, and
Yep. No. There's all these reputations, and that. I think even McClellan thought he had a reputation too, right? But there's all these ones that might have cost them their lives. Like Claiborne, I think it cost him his life to try and build.
Well, it's almost like he knew he had to. It's like he had to die to save his reputation or something,
Well,
he was one of those things.
But he knew it was impossible. He knew he knew they were fucked. And he knew that if he wasn't out there with his men, like he had to basically lead his men, into that. He knew it was going to be a disaster. They all had to have, except for Hood, apparently.
Hey, Paul Vicks was jumping in. He's there's a Winston Churchill pen I'm registered for. Oh, that sounds cool.
Oh, cool. Neat.
The original old Winnie boy.
Yeah. Snyder said that probably should have the 11th Corps frowny face, the 11 being the eyes, and then you turn the moon upside down. That's a frowny face.
Ooh, good call. That's a Photoshop situation right there.
Ryan said that Ed Bears had an article on Pea Ridge in the Arkansas Quarterly, spring 1961, and he highlights how much Siegel leaned on Kyle Massage. Love a staff officer getting credit. Yeah, Ryan's thing is staff officers, which is cool. Yeah, well, that's cool.
A lot of the staff officers, they were the most important people in these armies, these staff officers.
And a lot of them were related. In some cases, they were related or friends. Like Howard's staff, one of his staff officers was his brother Charles, and his other brother too. Were both on his staff.
Was he C.C. Howard to go O.O. Howard? Was it one of those deals?
Yeah. His name was Charles. And he looks a lot like his brother from the pictures I've seen.
No, but there's a lot of interesting people in this one, and I think a lot of the fact was a lot of the Union guys weren't locals. I mean, you had Jefferson C. Davis, you had Thomas Pedeston and Julius White. You had a lot of guys like that, but you also had the Schaefers and the Grusells and the Osterhauses, and that's you have to be pretty ignorant to assume that isn't a big part of why they're not remembered too well. It just is.
Yeah. Well, Ryan said that Louis Hebert is supposedly descended from the famous Canadian of the same name, the first European to farm in Canada. That's Canadian
first European to farm.
Wow, in Canada. Wow, first Canadian connection.
Yeah. All goes back to Canada, huh?
Yep. We burnt your White House.
Whatever.
But no, it's a really Pea Ridge was really interesting, to study. Just as you said, it's one that doesn't get looked at enough because it doesn't have the names. It doesn't have a Stonewall. It doesn't have a Lee. But you look at it, these people are just as interesting. Siegel's just as interesting as Stonewall.
Yeah, I think so. And I guess I think people, first of all, if you have listen to the podcast you have, this was a lot of fun doing that one, but I think it took a learning experience to kind of understand how big it actually was. I mean, you had 16,000 guys in the Confederates, 11,000 in the Union. So it was a pretty big battle numbers wise.
Yep.
But the strategy was interesting. You got some woods fighting. You've got a whole bunch of stuff going on. You got the Indians scalping people. I mean, it's brutal. It's a brutal battle.
It is, yeah.
And it was the first battle fought in Arkansas.
Yeah,
not that makes a freaking difference, but I mean that's just whatever. But you have, I think the fact of when it was fought, where it was fought, is the biggest reason why it was that big of a deal.
Yeah, I think so too. It just the Trans-Mississippi just doesn't get enough love, and it's still an important theater of the battle, theater of the war. It's like we talked about with the Meridian campaign that when Sherman is doing that. Him doing that, cutting the supply lines, has a direct effect on Robert E. Lee in the Eastern Theater. And it seems like they get studied separately what Lee is doing is separate from what is happening in Western theater, but by that point, Lee is starting to run out of supplies. He's running out of supplies because of what Sherman's doing. So what Sherman's doing with his march, including on the Meridian campaign, is working.
Yeah.
And bringing it into the war without costing a lot of lives.
And the other thing too that we talk about that people don't always, I don't know why people don't always think about this, is how the weather affects these things, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, this is one where literally they're walking in waist deep of snow,
which means I would have been in over my head.
Oh, big, literally, more than they usually are, But for the most part, I mean, but again, you deal with cold, you're dealing with limited supplies, and you lose your friggin' supply wagon, whatever. But I think when you just shut your eyes and think about what it must have been like to be there as a foot soldier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just how miserable the whole experience must have been, And then you got this jackass Van Dorn standing up there like he's Knights of the Shining,
fucking William Wallace.
I mean, for all the crap that Chamberlain gets for what he writes and passing the armies, this guy was saying it to them.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's like, you made us burn all the bacon. And now you're telling us that we got to go sit here and win for for his personal glory, because he wants to go capture St. Louis and take over that Budweiser brewery, which is a good one, by the way.
Go visit the Bang Barn and the Ass Factory, apparently.
That's probably he certainly did that a lot.
I was telling one of my friends about Van Dorn and just saying, and they were like, well, how did he meet his demise? I'm like, he took some guy's wife to the Bang Barn.
Yeah.
About it.
I mean, let's be. He's not the only general that
No, I know. That visited the Bang Barn. Of course not.
To spend many a time with that.
Tony just said Van Dork.
Yeah, exactly. Van Horny.
Van Horny.
But
Van Horny.
Yeah, but it's true though. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Shout out. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Great pod this morning.
Yeah, that was like I said, Ryan got a shout out in that episode.
Yeah, he got his name. But we've been looking forward to Peerage for a while. We talked about this for, I don't know when the hell we first mentioned Peerage.
Well, because I sat down
because the whole Bee-Ridge thing. That's the Bee-Ridge thing.
Yeah, Battle of Bee-Ridge. But
when I was recklessly exposed and I saw the light that day. And
for people that don't know the story, like I was like working it was back at the I guess it would have been May. So I'm like working from home.
You work in the blizzard machine.
Yep. Get this text message from Darren, and it's just like, I just got stung by a bee, and he's got like this.
I got stung in the eye by a bee.
So then he's going down to the store to get bee killer or whatever, and then the next picture I get is him next to the dead bee.
I took him out. Robert E. B. I call him. We call it the Battle of Bee Ridge. And ever since then, we talked about doing the Battle of Pea Ridge. But I'm glad we.
And it was Jay Price that brought it up too.
It was. That's right. It was Jay Price who brought it. No wonder she's running. She's in trouble. But Biddles, never forget. That was a tough one. I mean, I was breveted that day, Mary.
Well, then I get a picture of you holding a beer can to your eye.
I had to put the swelling down.
Heard about it for weeks after, about how he was going to die.
Oh my God, are you okay? Are you all right? Yeah, fucker, should have got you in the eyeball, fucker. We're an eye patch now, you loser. but that was a serious thing. But that was where the whole Peevers thing first came in our mind. But that was but it's a good battle though. I personally love studying about Albert Pike for all the stuff he did.
No, he's an interesting guy.
Good Boston guy. Said no to Harvard. He ended up going to Arkansas and becoming that lawyer and defending those Indians and became friends with the Indians, ended up raising that brigade.
Yeah.
Obviously, big Freemason, set up the Scottish Rite.
And he was the one that did he had something to do with Claiborne getting his degrees, right?
Right. He actually was there. He was present when Claiborne was raised through his degrees in Arkansas. Now he was down there anyway, but still he was a sovereign grand commander of the Scottish Rite back in 1859, right before the war started.
Which would have been Claiborne going through his stuff then. And wasn't he like Pike was at that big convention they had, right, where Claiborne was asked to speak?
Right. He was. Pike is a big, anybody who's a Freemason knows Pike is a big deal in that. I mean, he is. he still has a statue right near the Capitol.
I gotta go see it.
Still there. Albert Pike, yeah, right near the George Meade one, right on the corner from there. But yeah, Albert Pike, and he was somebody who he's buried right there, the Scottish Rite headquarters right there in Washington D.C., which is a place I've been, Mary, which is very cool.
I plan on going there sometime.
No, you're not allowed in.
We'll go stand outside and have a look.
Just kidding.
I know. No,
but again, he's someone who's very influential. But he for all the stuff that Forrest gets and guys like Wheeler get, Pike's cavalry guys, those Indians, were bad.
Oh, they were.
I mean,
there's some websites where that does not get mentioned about the scalping because it's very controversial. I watched a really good video about Pea Ridge. It's about just under an hour long. There's a guy that he does a really good job of explaining it. And he talks about the scalping and all that and just how the ratio of killed to wounded was really odd at that battle. So that's how they figured out that these soldiers had went and killed the wounded men.
I mean, they killed them, they scalped them, they mutilated them. It's just amazing to think about that doesn't get studied more. I mean, Simon Ballou, that story with him from the Second Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Does Frail come on today? Have you seen Frail?
Yeah, he has. Yeah, Ben. Actually, I thought I saw Ben pop on.
Oh, I don't know if so. Hey, Ben, if you're there, but his body got mutilated, and that was a big story.
Yeah.
These poor guys, from the cavalry up there, from Bussey's guys, they got cut up and scalped and the whole deal. And people don't know about it. I think it's more so the battle. I mean, Bull Run's a little different than Pea Ridge, admittedly, just psychologically and politically and stuff like that. But still, but again, Grissel used Bull Run to help motivate his guys.
Well, when they said Bull, when people said Bull Run, they knew what that meant. It's kind of like when Sherman, just before he takes Savannah, enters
Savannah.
Poor Savannah. There was something that was that he was going to do, but he had to go talk about it with somebody, and he said he didn't want another Ball's Bluff on his hands. So even things like Ball's Bluff as well as Bull Run, saying them would spark fear in soldiers or in generals. Like,
well, I know
generals for Ball's Bluff is the generals one though, because of what could happen.
We talk about reputation,
Yeah.
Jacobs, what is a death rate in the Civil War hospital for the wounded? I'm not sure the number at the top of my head, but I know that a lot of when Jonathan Letterman set up that triage system, it really helped that.
Yeah.
And that was something that went from that point on. But I have to look up the numbers, but I know a lot of people, infection and disease was the biggest thing.
That guy we found in Plymouth.
Yes, Sergeant Skarbudik. Yeah.
Skarbudik.
But if you ended up, but Letterman did a lot of that. He's another guy who does.
Yeah, but he doesn't get talked about. Yeah, he was the one after Antietam he set up, because there were so many wounded, he set up the triage system, and that carried into what it is today. A lot of what he did is still practiced today. Obviously, it's been improved upon, but Letterman is a guy that doesn't get a lot of mention either. Same with Rosecrans invented that one of the wagons or something. I think was it Rosecrans?
Well, they had to be Burnside invented the weapons, guns, right?
McClellan invented the saddle.
Son, I've heard it. Soldier, 1 in 4 chance of surviving a hospital visit. Sounds like my hospital, Mary. Very similar. Old Newton Wellesley, 50-50. Good odds right there. That's just a parking lot, even. God.
Wow. What kind of shit show are you running there?
I don't remember anything. I was my phone for my physical a few weeks ago, Mary. Got a good bill of health. Psychologically, not so much, but physically okay.
Yeah, psychologically.
They were going to give me a flu shot, and they forgot to give it to me. Goes to show how my hospital is. So I left. We never got a flu shot. Sorry. But a lot
posted an article for mortality rates. Thanks, Wayne.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, but it was brutal because but once Letterman set up that triage, it just helped the people who could be saved, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of them got surprised. They were stunned that Armistead died. They never thought he would die, right? No. Because this is obviously post triage, and they thought he was going to be fine, and they thought he'd be okay, and he died 2 or 3 days later. That surprised a lot of people.
Is that what happened with Pettigrew too? Didn't he Like
No,
he
Pettigrew,
didn't
Pettigrew got no
die.
just Pettigrew got shot in the chest at Falling
Right.
Waters. You know, he got shot by I think a Massachusetts guy.
He was, yeah.
Maybe in the parking lot of Newton Wellesley Hospital. Who knows? You know, but he got shot in the chest because he was charging a sniper or a sharpshooter, they call him back then. He got shot in the chest, but he had no chance.
No.
You know, I think Armistead's wounds were like in the shoulder, the legs, and some people thought he got shot in the torso, but that's still debated. But they were surprised when he died. They didn't think he was going to die.
Well, that's like C.F. Smith scraped his leg.
Well, look at Albert Sidney Johnson, right?
Yeah.
He didn't think it was serious.
Well, the reason for Albert Sidney Johnson didn't even know he was wounded. So we'll talk about this in our Shiloh episodes, but he gets shot behind the knee. But what had happened is he had been in like a duel a few years prior, and he'd received some injury that had severed some nerve endings. So he had no feeling in that part of his leg, apparently. So when he got shot, he didn't even feel it. He didn't notice it until his boot had filled with blood. And by then it was too late.
Well, same thing with Sickles. Same deal. I mean, that must have been a 1 in a million shot that got Sickles, right? Because that ball must have just, that cannonball must have just lightly scraped his leg to a point where it caused damage, but he didn't feel it. Now, a lot of adrenaline and the heat of the moment and the smoke.
Yeah, you don't feel it if there's adrenaline.
But he just, he looks down, his boot is full with blood, and then he started to get pale and lose his mind. But you know what he did, though? Fired that cigar up.
Yeah, because he's being taken off the battlefield.
That's how that's how I'm going to go. If I end up being shot in a Civil War battle someday, Mary, I'm going to make sure that when I do,
you've got cigars.
I got cigars. Like when some asshole reenactor brings live ammo and I get hit, I'm going to have a cigar. I'm going to take off the field.
You're gonna write me a letter before.
I will tell you, Ben, if you're still on there, you want to find a way to get the Civil War reenactments more popular. Start using live ammo. God. You get a lot more people watching those.
Nicholas says Rosecrans adopted ambulances with suspension systems to reduce jostling of the injured during transport. That's right. And then Allie B said C.F. Smith was by far one of the oddest things. I think it was after he went to visit Lew Wallace. I heard the leg things described in a few different ways, but it all sounds gross. Yeah, it's Shara writes about it in his book about Shiloh. I think that's Blaze of Glory. And Smith is just like, he's like, I don't get it. I just scraped my leg. Oh, and he just gets sick.
I didn't get a tetanus shot.
I wonder if he got tetanus. Ever had a tetanus shot before?
Of course I have.
It's fucking horrible.
I know you guys are up in the Great North. You guys are probably still killing bears with bare hands and stuff. We actually have medicine.
I had to get a tetanus shot one time because I was working in a museum and I was moving some old saws with the other technician that worked there. And we were putting them on display and we were putting them up, and all of a sudden, like, I was trying to hold on to one and then one slid down and like just nicked my elbow, but it was like so rusty.
I've stepped on so many nails in my day.
I usually every 10 years I do something that I have to go to the hospital for, and they're like, oh, you're due for a tetanus shot. I'm like, yes, I am.
Yeah, I had my full set of shots 2 physicals ago. The tetanus one, but I mean, little things like that. It's not surprised that Smith would have scraped and got infected. Yep. I mean, especially if you don't get it checked out, right? You don't think about it. If you get shot in the leg and you get amputated, you're gonna be thinking about it. But if you scrape it, you're not gonna waste your time even getting looked at.
But then some of them, they got shot and they stayed on the battlefield. Like, I think it was that Battle of Lexington where Claiborne got wounded, I don't know, like shot right through his jaw. And he kept commanding. And it was one of his staff that finally came up to him and said, they're not understanding what you're saying. And you're like, his mouth was like, it kept filling with blood. So they were like, dude, you need to go off the battlefield right now.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm fine.
I mean, that's a tough injury though. I mean, that's why a lot of guys grow beards to cover the injuries.
Well, that's what, like, so we got shot, I think right here, took out his bottom 2 teeth as well. But then he had this scar, so he grew the goatee. But then sometimes he would really get going with his speeches and he would start to lisp. Mm-hmm. So he had like a lisp because of it. But yeah, that was he stayed on commanding. Isaac Trimble was another one. He got shot in the leg. He told them not to amputate the leg. And then he got shot in the same place at Gettysburg, I think it was.
Well, Ewell got his leg taken off at Second Manassas, right? And then he's riding around Gettysburg and he has a wooden leg. He got shot in the wooden leg. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, thank God for that. Because,
But Trimble got shot in the leg. And then he's like, don't amputate it. So they didn't. They were able to whatever they did, they were able to save it.
Rub some dirt in it.
But then he got shot at Gettysburg and they had to amputate the leg. And he said to the surgeons, he's like, if you guys had took this fucking thing before, I wouldn't be here. And because he was in the hospital, Simon Cameron got word of it and wrote Abraham Lincoln a letter and said, you need to have that man arrested because he has a lot of knowledge of the railways. So then Trimble gets fucking shipped to Johnson's Island on Lake Erie, which is like, that's a level of hell I wouldn't want to be at in the winter. That was the place where they had prisoners escape and go across the lake to Canada. But they would chase them half-heartedly. And I guess they figured if the guys were able to make it all the way over to Canada, good for them.
Let them go.
Like and they were looking for Johnson's Island. So it's in Sandusky Bay. You can actually see Cedar Point. It's a beautiful spot. Like I'll go visit there.
The amusement park?
Yeah, you can look across and you can see the roller coasters. And then when you're on one of the roller coasters at Cedar Point takes you up so high, you can look over and you can see Johnson's Island. Oh, cool. So when they were looking to find Johnson's Island, there was one island that they were considering, but they said it was too close to Canada and they knew the Canadians would try to come over and rescue them.
That's probably true.
So
they probably saw that from the roll, on top of the
roller
Ferris
coasters.
Wheel. They probably saw it,
Well, someone said I was there with a friend one time and because Cedar Point does Halloween weekends, which is like really cool Halloween stuff or whatever. Mm-hmm. If you're into Halloween, highly recommend it. It's really awesome what they do. But one of them was like, why don't they include Johnson's Island? It's probably haunted.
Yeah, it probably is haunted. It's like the islands off Boston Harbor, where they put the Confederates out there too. Mm-hmm. It's Fort Warren over there. It's with the movie Shutter Island was supposed to be made of. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah,
though.
Yeah. Johnson's Island it's actually a privately owned island, so it's owned by all the residents that live there. So you pay like a $2 fee to cross the bridge and go over there. But it's the only spot on the island where people are allowed. Other than that, it's all private property. Like they don't have the buildings aren't around anymore, but they just have the cemetery there. And they do they replace like the headstones are all fairly new because they had to go in and do like kind of like that whatever that sonar thing is to figure out where all the bodies are. But there's more there than what headstones are, and they still find them. Like they'll go in when the technology improves and other stuff.
What troops was Trimble commanding? You mean at Gettysburg? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, Trimble commanding. Yeah.
He could Lane and Lawrence would pick a charge. He had those two brigades. They would the ones behind Pettigrew. He only had two. He had a small one, but that was he still got to do them though.
JT asked, did Smith scrape his leg getting out of a boat? Yes, that's exactly what happened to him. I think he scraped his leg getting out of a boat. Jacob said his 4 front teeth are still there. He can still fight. I think he's referring.
Well, that's how they could tell. If you had 2 fronts and 2 tops, you could be a Confederate soldier to tear the cartridge. That's how they. That was.
I guess Claiborne didn't have to worry about that because he's a general, right? So.
No, that's true. That's true.
Oh, and Snyder said the Ohio Penitentiary outside of Columbus, they kept Confederates there, was a haunted house for decades. Oh, Jacob said 7th North Carolina was one of the ones that Trimble.
Yeah. Trimble got a pretty good deal at Gettysburg because he was just there, because of attrition and injury and death and stuff like that. He rose up, guys like Dorsey Pender got mortally wounded and people like that. And everyone got moved up and he got a gig.
Trimble's one of the oddities I love to study. Just because the Johnson.
I never understood your fascination with him though.
It was the Johnson's Island thing because when I went to Johnson's Island the first time, I looked to see who like the famous ones that were there, and I saw Isaac Trimble, and I'm like, oh, he was in. I was with one of my friends, and I'm like, oh, he was in Pickett's charge, and they were like, but it's not Pickett, and I said, well, it's actually the Pettigrew Pickett Trimble charge.
Oh, you pulled your actually card on them. Actually, I'm a Civil War. I'm a Civil War historian, so I know what I'm talking about. He's buried in Baltimore near John Wilkes Booth. In case you're curious, at Greenmount Cemetery. Anything else you need to know, you let me know. Fucker.
But that's how I got into Trimble, was the Johnson's Island thing. And just the fact that it was Simon Cameron who sent Lincoln a letter saying, this guy is in a hospital right now and you need to make sure he gets moved to a prison because he has a lot of knowledge about railways and he could really fuck us up.
Yeah. I mean, he certainly was, but he gets to your point. He doesn't get a lot of credit for that stuff either. A lot of these guys don't.
No, I mean, I don't like to study Pickett because Pickett's been done to death. I like to look at Pettigrew and I like to look at Trimble because they're the two. They're involved in that charge as well, and they just don't get talked about, right? But it's the Virginia thing too, you know.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, it's always fun when you go full actually on someone. You don't do it that often. When you do,
I try not to, though.
But when you do, though, it's like popcorn time. Oh, here we go. Mary's got her actually hat on today.
Well, sometimes people need to be brought.
Actually, they called him a Christian general.
At my eye doctor, actually, at my eye doctor's the other day, I got my Sherman staff mask on, and my eye doctor went full.
Oh, I can imagine you with the eye doctor. Read the first line: HOWARD. No, ma'am, that's not what that says. Oh, I'm sorry. OOHOWA. Nope, that's not what that says, ma'am.
Well, he walks in, and we're doing like, "Hey, how's it going?" Whatever, because we haven't seen each other in a couple of years, and he's like,
"Is that why you were at the eye doctor? Because you couldn't see him for a couple of years?"
My vision, well, admittedly, my vision's horrible.
Yeah, it is.
People like to try my glasses on. It's like I'm some kind of circus freak because they're so strong. It's ridiculous how strong I'm blind. Anyway, so he's like, "Oh my God, you've got Civil War generals on your mask." I'm like, yes.
I think it's pretty cool that you have that. It's pretty sweet.
Well, your masks are pretty cool too. Your Lincoln one is. And someone bought you a Battle of Missionary Ridge mask.
Oh, I know. I know. You did. You hooked me up with that one.
Yeah.
You know.
That and the Army of the Cumberland flag.
Yep, you did. You did. And the Sherman one.
Sherman one, yeah. Yeah, with Rolling's art on it.
Yeah, that's my favorite one is the Sherman one.
Yeah, mine too. But yeah, it turns out my eye doctor was at Gettysburg for the 150th. So he was telling me all about it. And then he's telling me he's into studying like Longstreet and all this other stuff. And he's been watching the Lincoln series and said that he enjoyed it.
James Longstreet?
Yeah, he's into Longstreet.
It's Robert E. Lee, right?
Snyder, crescent moon, many undulations. God, don't worry, Mary. I have to special order my contacts. Yeah, I used to do contact lenses. I'm fucking lazy. Like throwing my glasses on.
I think the glasses are. I've always had glasses better than contacts. I don't. Unfortunately, my eyesight is obviously awesome, so I don't have to worry about it. But I do have reading glasses though. I don't have to read glasses on. But they're not as old. Okay, well, we're gonna use spring chicken. Okay, so you make fun of me.
I'm almost 40.
Okay, there you go. But
Mini ball, doesn't she work at the bag bar?
I can imagine you into therapy under like asleep. You'd be talking Bang Barn, Crescent Moon, Claiborne, Howard, Sherman, Snodgrass.
Sorry, I have my binkies. Okay.
You have a whole bunch of biggies.
I do.
You know.
Well, before we have to try and like talk about the episode this time.
Mary, you were concerned about something about therapy. You kept talking about this ass factory. But we're not going to talk about the episode. We haven't even talked about the second part of Peerage yet. We talked a little bit about Haybear and about how he did there. And but don't you think it must have been aggravating for him to go back to the camp at Foster's Farm and find out that basically half ththose guys didn't even fight? And they were just sitting there, and none of the junior officers said, they just said, we heard the fighting, but we just didn't feel like doing it. We're waiting for McCulloch because they just use that as an excuse. We don't know where he is. But
nobody knew he was dead because when McIntosh found out he was dead, he was like, you can't tell anybody. And then McIntosh gets killed. And then nobody, like, that's when it basically just starts to crumble. But like the leadership at that part of the battle was completely decapitated because Haybear ends up getting fucking captured because he gets lost in the smoke that's happening. That's another thing that plays a huge role at this battle is the smoke from the guns and the artillery. Cause like we talked about that last week in this live because it was kind of talking about a little bit and so when we talk about we talk about the episodes going into like last week and then next week we're going to talk about Bentonville, right? And Bentonville's another situation because you've got a whole bunch of like really big names. Like this is the opposite. You've got for the Confederates you've got McLaws and Johnson and Bragg and Law and Colquitt and all these guys. And on the Union.
You want to talk about who you want to talk about? Slocum and Howard? right? It was mostly Slocum, just gonna say.
I know.
Okay.
Just
But
when you shit.
I know. But what I'm saying is for everything Pea Ridge was, it was no big names. This one had the big names, but on the Confederate side, don't you think? I mean, I don't want to jump into Bentonville, but don't you think they should have been better? Considering they had 20-something thousand, 22,000 guys, you had a bunch of big names. You got them. Are you playing defense?
Yeah.
You hit Slocum of all friggin' people. He's the guy you get. You get Slocum, and you got. I mean, I know Howard came up. I know the whole thing, how it all works out. But not to spoil the surprise, but the Union kind of goes right through it. But that's the situation when you talk about Bentonville. We'll talk more about this details next week. But that's one that they really should have been better. Yeah. Versus this one, it's almost like the Confederates, even though they were caught by surprise, did better than they probably should have been. But I think when you talk about like guys like Nicholas Crucell and people like that in Osterhaus, they really stabilized it. But the Confederates, there was so many. I think if you took, the reason I was going with this is I think if you had some of that Bentonville generals here, this could have been a totally different story.
Yeah. I think
but again, by the time you got to Bentonville, the army was a friggin' hodgepodge. It was like the island of the friggin' misfit toys.
Well, yeah,
guys
exactly.
From all these different armies all thrown together. Like, well, here you go.
It's at the very end of the war, and too, like, Slocum, and I mean, Howard writing about Slocum is pretty hilarious because Howard won't insult anybody. He's talking about how slow Slocum is.
He's the Ned Flanders of the Union Army, by the way.
He is. But Howard just was like, with Columbia, Slocum was a few days behind me.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, David? Yeah.
Hey,
but I mean, but we'll talk more detail. Oh, we're really doing 3 parts of Bentonville, by the way.
It's part 2 of the Carolinas.
Oh, okay. I was like, you mentioned. And then, I was like,
yeah, no, but then the last part is the surrender.
Oh, I was gonna say, how the hell are we gonna get 3 episodes on freaking Bentonville?
We're not doing. It's part 2.
That's right. I was gonna ask you about that. I was gonna ask you offline. This is popped into my head right now. Are we live yet? By the way, you never told me. Okay, that's fine.
Maybe you should go get your hearing checked. You are getting.
Okay.
You give me shit, I'll give it right back to you.
That's okay. But we'll definitely talk about all that stuff. Yesterday, we'll talk about Fort Fisher. We'll talk about that. But it's going to be it'll be an interesting one. But I guess the whole point is you had, I think, bad leadership from the beginning with this Pea Ridge one, and they kind of represent themselves halfway decent until the end. But if they had better leadership at that time of the battle, they should have pushed right through them. They should have gone right through those guys. And Curtis should have got run over at this.
But Curtis was prepared and he was ready. And there's a lot of talent at this battle. Like you have Osterhaus, who's gonna be, later at Chattanooga. Like he's another guy that I don't think gets talked about enough in the Civil War. And like you said, Grusel and all that. But you have Curtis that night. He makes sure the men all have rations.
Well, he does the basics. That's the basic thing they should do. But the thing about it, what surprised me was Randor was concerned by how strong a defensive position the Union had, right? At Pea Ridge. He was able to draw them out of it and still got his ass kicked.
Yep.
But he was surprised. He was not hollow, and he was surprised to see Carr there. He didn't think they were going to see
Carr did a really great thing by putting his men up where he did, but then that's where Van Dorn is leading Price's troops, right? And he does something very uncharacteristic. He slows down and he's like, okay, get into the line of battle, and that was not unlike that was. Well,
he did that because he also thought he also was stalling for McCulloch, though.
Yeah, because he doesn't know what's going on. And like I said in the episode, this is quite possibly the worst communication ever in the Civil War.
Yeah. Like we talked about how bad the cell connection is in Arkansas. So
you want bad cell connection, you go to Bragg's headquarters at Chickamauga.
Oh yeah.
Now I'll be curious how my phone holds up if I'm singing praises to Bragg.
You also have an iPhone 3. That's all the part of the problem you have, but that's okay. But you keep buying a new case though. Keep getting the new case. Don't get a new phone, but keep getting a new case. It's okay. Yep, another new case and a phone that sucks, but it's okay.
Do you know?
You have an iPhone 7?
Yeah, I think it's a 7.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know it's a 7. That's like the Atari 2600 of video game systems.
I know. Phone. You know how much cell phone plans are here in Canada? They're stupid expensive.
Obviously, less cheaper than those cases, though.
I
those
like my
books. So just think, if you stop buying books for 1 month, you can buy a whole new phone.
fucker.
Okay, fuck all you want. I don't give a shit. But
Maybe I couldn't have. I did buy us new sound equipment
oh, that's right. I forgot about that. And how do you save the money for that?
by not drinking for a month.
It's always fun to behind the curtains conversations, the old Breakfast Club World headquarters,
Call me maybe.
No, yeah, exactly. Jeez, I haven't had that in a while, by the way.
Oh, thanks, Allie. I got it from Redbubble.
It is a cool phone case.
Yeah, and actually, it's a really durable one too. Redbubble's the best place to get phone cases from.
Not as cool as my phone case, though.
Well, I do, as a Patriots fan, that is pretty cool. But yeah, I couldn't get one with Howard on it, so this was the next best thing.
Yeah, but I
do have Howard on my beer koozie, though.
You do. Today.
It's right there.
But so, all right. So let me ask you the question we always ask with these things: what do you learn about this podcast with P. Ridge?
So there was a few things. How, and Ryan's mentioned this a few times, how international this battle was in terms of where people were from, especially on the Union side. Like you've got Hungarian, German, Prussian, apparently Canadian connection too, the mayor, which I didn't know about. So there's that, as well as I didn't really know about Franz Siegel and the artillery. That was something really cool that I read about him, because I usually just read negative about Siegel. And I mean, it was cool to read something positive about him, to see that he did have a shining moment in the Civil War. And it was apparently artillery was his thing, even though he didn't want to do it. And also just to see the fighting that was happening, especially on the Confederate side of it. And as well, just the parallels with battles like Shiloh, with when McCullough goes down, McIntosh is like, hey, can't say anything for morale, because if they know he's dead, this is going to fuck up morale for the troops and they're not going to want to fight. And then McIntosh dies and there's this communication breakdown. And then just, I think how, and parallels to Gettysburg too, that was really interesting. And just how outnumbered the Union troops are, and they could have gone the complete other way.
Yeah. I think for me, it was how much Colonel Groussel drew back on Bull Run to motivate his guys. Mm-hmm. And not just that he did it, but they actually were legit, okay. I guess, I don't know why, but I guess at that point, I kind of thought these guys fought in a bubble and they just were going to cover their asses. I mean, you're at the point where you're Groussel's guys, right? And you are literally seeing Bussey's cavalry running right by you, going the other way, saying, don't go, they'll kill you, don't go. Because we're watching these Indians scalping these guys. And Groussel is able to put them on that line, straighten them all out, get them in a fighting force to the point where Osterhaus is going to go to Curtis and say, this Groussel, I mean, he saved the day here, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that was a cool story that we talked about was the story of William Black, right? Remember him?
Your classmate? Because you're so old.
I went to school with the William Black, and it was a different guy. Okay, just so you know. Anyway, so he's a guy who, as hay bears guys are going through the woods, they like Mary on a Saturday night. They get lost in the woods, and they ended up going off and veering the wrong direction. They start heading right towards these guns, right? And there's a guy named William Black who's going to stand there, and he is going to literally hold off about 100 guys by himself with the repeating rifle for about 15, 20 minutes. He eventually gets wounded, but he gets the Medal of Honor. But because of that, they only lose 2 guns instead of all 6 guns that come back later on. So stuff like that is really cool. And then Eugene Carr, New Yorker notwithstanding, Mary, how well he did and how aggressive he was. And he is another guy who got the Medal of Honor.
He was a guy, right? In this battle?
He was a guy who moved the guns, those Iowa guns, down in that hollow to get right up front with those Confederate lines, and he manned them. He was right there with them. The Siegel things, that was an interesting story too. But I think it's funny how Siegel will do something well, then he'll step in it and do well. Like he does really well with the artillery and then gets lost.
Like, yeah, he's just not consistent at all. I mean, I enjoy studying him because of the whole 11th core thing. The 11th core is just such a fascinating study. Um, just how they were they were like literally like a misfit core. They don't fit in the Eastern Theater at all. He's out
Oh,
here fighting the Western Theater, but another thing that you made is like, the reference to Bull Run with Russell. Just how that these battles clearly were not separate to these men. They knew about Bull Run, and the name Bull Run was what these men were like, okay, yeah, we can't have this happen again. We can't have that reputation. And I think to me, that's a reason why you have to study these battles all together and recognize the connections between them and how even out in the Trans-Mississippi, it's affecting things in the Eastern Theater too, and vice versa,
Well, I think it's funny how that word resonates because you got a guy, um, who's not from here, Nicholas Grissel, right?
Yep.
He Bavaria, big Bavarian cream donut guy, married, but he's able to help rally the troops the way he did.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was neat. It was neat in that regard, that you did that. And I guess the other thing I'm surprised about, and this is kind of a big picture thing, right, is even to this day, I'm surprised how a lot of these guys' names are not bigger names in the Civil War.
I know. The only one,
I'll never understand. I know that
same here.
Gary's down there today and they're doing some things at P
Yep.
Ridge and Battlefield Trust. I get all that, but still, and I know a lot of people here, it's preaching the converted.
Yep.
But if you go to like, I go to my Civil War roundtable, and I got to get there in the first 10 minutes because they all fall asleep after 10 minutes, okay? Because they're all average ages deceased in this group. But if I go there and you mention guys like Sterling Price, you mentioned Benjamin McCullough, you mentioned Alexander Asboth, they don't know. And these are people who study this stuff. It's just a very underappreciated, very understudied battle. And I don't know why, because it should be a lot bigger.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. When you have like men like Osterhaus here who they're so talented and they don't get talked about, and these are like not the commanding generals that are doing this. I think Osterhaus is a colonel at this time, but then
he's still a colonel.
Yeah. And you go and look at what he does at Chattanooga, because Chattanooga, his thing was, what was that? That was Wauhatchie, right?
Wauhatchie.
Yeah, that he was involved. Oh, he was the Lookout Mountain, right?
Right.
He was the one that got stuck.
It was both. He was the one who got stuck because the bridge collapsed, and because he was stuck, he got to go.
Yeah.
So it was both Wauhatchie and Lookout Mountain. But because this is where you get lucky, because the bridge collapses, you stay, and he ends up taking Lookout Mountain, makes Hooker look good. Hooker's gonna be able to go north and work away around, get on that Confederate left on Missionary Ridge and help drive them off, because Sherman, not so much that day, right? Because he was going up against St. Patrick Claiborne,
Patrick Claiborne. He was out-generaled that day. Sherman was totally out-generaled.
Snyder, so I need an invite to the round table. Snyder, email info@civilwarbreakfastclub.com, and then old Fincheroux here will send you the Zoom information for it.
And Snyder too, if you're looking to join a roundtable, Darren and I are part of the Chattanooga Chickamauga Roundtable, which is run by a guy named Ed Lowe. If you just search on Facebook for that group, he does really great. There's great lectures once a month. It's a really awesome group, and Ed is a really great guy. That is definitely one that you can join. I mean, I'm part of it. I'm Canadian, so.
Well, my point is we have our own little roundtable, but I'm part of one here back before the everything went bad in the world here, before the zombies took over, the apocalypse. We would go there at the senior center in a local town here. I always felt young going there, Mary, I tell you, but definitely join. If you have a local roundtable, do it. But we have our own little one here. But to Mary's point,
a lot of fun.
The one we do in Chattanooga, Chickamauga is really, really cool. We're part of that Congress one too, aren't we?
We can attend the events because we're part of the Chickamauga.
Yeah,
one.
That's what it is. It's something like that. But definitely join one, because I mean, the one I'm in, there's a guy who's an author of some books, and they know their stuff. I've done presentations on like an assassination and Booth and stuff like that, and some other ones we do. But it's pretty cool. It's just, you get up there and talk, but definitely do it. But I thought he was talking about our one, to be honest. So I get an email address to the round table.
No, Snyder was on our last round table.
Right. I remember that. I was saying, what the fuck am I talking about? He was on the last one, but anyway, so you already got the email, so you'll be invited.
Yeah,
So
you'll go in,
you'll like this next one. This next round table is going to be a lot of fun. I'll tell you that right now.
So Jacob's recording his next podcast today in the Georgia Gold Rush.
Oh, cool.
He said my roundtable is the same. It's always a Gettysburg topic. And Tony says East Coast big battle centric thought dominates the old school buffs. That is what I've noticed too. Like there's or people that are just like, you know, for somebody like my mother who's sort of into the Civil War, she's very much like Grant, Stonewall, Lee, and all that. And there's
Well, they're
nothing
the big
wrong with
sexy
that.
names. I mean, they are, right?
Yeah, but I asked her now. One thing I did say to her, she was asking me like a year ago if I'd read any good books. So I was telling her about the Claiborne biography, and she actually,
shocker.
yeah, I know, but she actually said, "Oh, I've heard of him. He was the Irish general." And I'm like,
Wow.
how? I was shocked. Like I was
So
actually.
that's why you talked to her yesterday.
No, I had to go see her because it was her birthday.
Oh,
She's all excited about reading Robert E. Lee and Me. She's really like, she's like,
yeah, that's a good book. I was reading that this morning. For a while. That book is Robert E. Lee. That Ty Sedgley book, whoever pronounce his last name. That book is legit good. That is a good.
No.
It makes you feel like such a like miserable person. I mean that whole chapter about the Lee Chapel and about Washington Lee University. It's just astounding how
I know. Well, I told her, I said that he talks about songs of the South in it. And she was like, oh, the stuff your grandma used to have you listen to. And I'm like, yep. She's like, oh, that'll be interesting. I'm like, yeah, it will be. Lori's got to go. Thanks so much, Lori. And then David said Knoxville Roundtable is pretty good. 2 trips to Chickamauga a year.
Oh, cool.
Pretty cool. Thomas says our roundtable gets grumpy when talks deviate from battles.
Well, we had a talk. It's good. He makes a good point. We had the guy did a presentation on how on the railroad system, and I thought it was interesting. But you would have thought he was up with it. I mean, it was people were just like this. Sounds like it's a crap. This sucks. I want to hear about Antietam or it's funny. It's an interesting group. I'd like to get back to it again. We do it on Zooms. I haven't been the last couple because seeing the guys in the 90s try to figure out a Zoom call, all you see is this side of their face up. Hello? And so it's kind of not very motivating. But the live ones are good. But definitely, I mean, I think we mentioned that like in the summertime. If you get a chance to join a Civil War round, if not start one, there's enough nerds in the area to do it. Just
well, I mean, we sort of have our own with this, which is not the conventional roundtable where we're bringing in a speaker and stuff. We're just giving people kind of the floor to talk about whatever they want for a couple hours, where there's no like nobody's going to pull the actually card or anything like that, which I've seen done recently on Facebook. Actually,
I've seen you do that not too long ago.
What?
Just teasing you.
I know. Eric says, think Megan Kate Nelson's Three-Cornered War goes in more depth on the West Trans-Mississippi. Oh, that's a good book.
Oh, hey, John. What's up,
Hey, John.
Yeah. What's wrong with this stupid thing here today?
What?
Phone's being a pain in the ass.
Oh, Jim finished Robert E. Lee and Me. He said it was awesome. Yeah, it's one of the best books I've read in a long time. It's so good.
It's good. It's so much like Confederates in the Attic. It reminds me a lot of it though, because you read it and you just feel so bad. Like you feel bad about just society and life in general. Some of these people, like just some of them. The chapter he taught. I don't want to spoil it because people are reading this. Hey, Amelia.
Hi, Amelia.
The chapter he talks about the lynchings, right, in his younger days, and then the chapter he talks about Washington and Lee University. It's like what the hell's going on? It's just some of the stuff and how much they fight for that and how much they want to keep it. It's really an eye opener. I mean, it's that book is a 250-page, like I said, apology for him in his mind.
Good for him though, for he's got death threats from that, which is
I'm sure he has. But it's very it'll open your eyes to a lot of stuff, and you'll look at things a lot differently.
Yeah,
we've talked. You and I have talked offline a million times about these statues, right? About how it's an ongoing thing. But if you don't understand, this book will teach you a lot about that, the intent behind them and stuff like that. It's a great read. I mean, it's definitely worth it if you haven't read it.
And the other Civil War related thing that's been going on that we've been watching too is the Lincoln documentary on
That's right. We have
CNN.
been.
It is very well done. Now it's based, if you've been studying Lincoln for a long time, you're going to be hearing, you might hear some stuff that you already know, but
Well,
I
that's the thing I
love.
don't understand. It's like people complain that it's too kind of basic. Well, first of all, it's CNN. It's not History Channel.
But you
It's not
have to put
C-SPAN.
yourself in the
Right.
mindset of somebody that might just be getting into it. Like I know
Exactly.
my parents are watching it and they are, or no, they're recording it because apparently they're watching All Creatures Great and Small as well, which
Oh,
is
all right.
on PBS or
But
whatever.
but I guess the point is like, of course it's going to be simplistic as someone who studies this stuff all the time, because that's the whole point of it. But the fact that it's so funny when people complain that they put on History Channel, they're sick of seeing Pawn Stars and Chumley all the time,
And then they go and do
right?
something like Grant, and it's
But then you
something,
complain, about it. It's like, look, it's like, I mean, and this is one of those coming to Jesus moments I had a long time ago. Is not everyone studies this stuff like I do, or you do, or anybody else does.
Yep.
So when you see something, yes, it's going to be simple, it's going to be basic, but it's still content, right? The Lincoln movie was no earth shattering stuff either,
No,
right?
but for somebody like, I mean, and I love the Lincoln movie. It's one of my favorite movies. But for yeah, Jim said CNN's Lincoln gets better with each episode. It
It
absolutely
does,
does. Yeah,
and I think in the
but
Civil
to
War now,
put yourself
finally.
in the shoes of somebody who is kind of on the outside of that, they're going to get enough to possibly spark their interest, and they're going to go read, and they're going to learn more. And I think that's what matters. The other thing too, he's being presented as a human. He's not being presented as this god, which unfortunately he's been elevated to in some circles, which isn't, I don't think is right. I mean, I Lincoln is probably the greatest
He's
president
like
ever,
everybody
but
else. He's a flawed human like everybody else is. It's good, the bad, and the ugly. Best president this country will ever have, no question. But again, he has mistakes, the colonization, the way the habeas corpus stuff. But you know what though? What else was he going to do in that situation, especially with keeping Maryland in line and putting guys? I mean, thank God that he did what he did.
yeah,
But there is definitely deification of him by
there
some
is.
people who I don't get.
I don't either.
To the point where they say there are people who think he never swore, and if you say that he swore, you'll get ostracized.
I've been ostracized for that comment before. Like I'm like, you can't tell me that he wasn't dealing with McClellan. He's getting those letters. He probably was like, fuck this. He probably dropped a few F-bombs.
I mean,
That doesn't
he
mean he's
was,
a bad person for swearing.
of course, it doesn't exactly. And then the fact that the first woman he ever loved was Mary Lincoln, which is simply
It was
not
Anne
true.
Rutledge. It was
It
Anne
was in
Rutledge.
Rutledge. And you tell me he wasn't at those bang barns, Mary. I don't know.
Exactly.
I
Well,
don't
like,
know.
but that's the thing. Like, I've always believed that his first love was Anne Rutledge. He never forgot about her. But Herndon was the one that talked about it in his biography, and he's not exactly the most reliable source. But Mary Lincoln factors into that too, because she did like a smear campaign against Anne Rutledge and said she was never to be mentioned. Like, but if you know Mary Lincoln's personality, and I do like Mary Lincoln, I have a lot of respect for her. That
Well,
woman
she was
went through a
afraid
lot of
of
shit
every
in her life.
woman that Lincoln. I mean,
Yeah,
the
she
fact
was.
that Grant wasn't in the booth with him that night was because she hated Julia. They hated each other
But she
because the
treated
fact that
Julia like shit.
that's what I mean. Because any woman who was around old Abe, she had a problem with,
Yeah, like
right?
what happened, right? At when Lincoln was visiting City Point and
When
Lincoln.
Booth shot him, I heard about that. Yeah,
Oh, this is when he's at City
I.
Point with and so Lincoln, so
This is what
Mary.
you're gonna do. Actually, here, let's hear it.
No, I'm not gonna do actually. So General Ord's wife was she was on horseback and Lincoln was riding along with her. Julia and Mary Lincoln are in the carriage together, and Mary Lincoln apparently had a migraine that day. Well, I guess Mary got out of the carriage and she saw Lincoln with Julia Ord, and she like
Yeah.
fucking temper tantrum over it.
Well, she was certainly a jealous type. There's no question
She was, she absolutely was. I mean, she had some like mental health issues too and all that, which weren't.
So of course she's going to bash people like Anne Rutledge, and she's going to tell everyone in the world about that Mary was was his first love, and history is going to stick to that, and that's a big part of it too. It just
Yeah, but there's people there's people that when you mention the name of Anne Rutledge, it's like mentioning the devil's name, and it's like Anne Rutledge was a person too, and Lincoln
yeah.
clearly had an affection for her, and if you know, he probably did love her. And this is something where it's not written about. We don't know for sure. This is just my opinion. It's me reading between the lines and looking at their relationship. I think he was in love with her. And if someone thinks he wasn't, then that's fine. But I think he was.
And if he was, so what? So what?
Exactly. He's a human.
I mean, she died. It wasn't like he.
She died horribly.
Right. It wasn't like he just. That's part of the Lincoln thing. I get it to a point, but you got to be somewhat realistic about it. So if he did, he did. I mean, he was a young guy. I mean, he was an athlete, wrestler, fought in the Black Hawk
and
War.
When he went to New Orleans, he probably did go to a fucking bang barn. That's how a lot of men got their initiation into sex, was going to the bang barns.
I mean, they don't call the rail splitter for nothing, Mary.
Jesus. But I mean, I really enjoy the show. I enjoy the historians they brought on.
It is a very good show.
I also love the fact they brought in Conan O'Brien.
That's the other weird thing is people so but it's like no, I think it's good, but people don't. In this, admittedly, this is something I asked you about one day, and you actually sunned me on this one. Okay, is he's actually quite the Lincoln scholar and collector of memorabilia, which I didn't realize. I thought they put him on just because it's just a celebrity.
No,
but there's
an interview.
He knows his stuff, though. He knows his stuff.
There's Ford's Theater had him on to ask questions to different Lincoln scholars, and Conan has actually studied his Lincoln's humor specifically.
Right.
And I love the fact that Conan is on there because it means that it makes more people comfortable to study this. It's not just these people that have like PhDs and masters, which is awesome. Yeah. There's someone else that has done this in their spare time, you know, because they're passionate about it and they know their shit. Conan has every right to be on there as much as Harold Holzer does, in my opinion.
You know, but they want to see Holzer, they want to see Doris Kearns Goodwin, and they want to see guys. That's who they want to see.
But you know what? These other people deserve a voice too, to show that, you know, there's people like Conan and a lot of the people on here that spend hours and hours reading and studying this, that they know just as much as somebody, you know, who has a master's, and they deserve to have a voice in that. And I feel like Conan is kind of that for us.
You know why he's so smart, Mary? You know where he's from?
Boston
guy. We're all wicked smart here.
Yeah, he went to Harvard too, actually.
Could get into BC.
But I guess I went on a bit of a rant there, but it's just nice to see Conan on there, kind of representing that part of history.
No, I at first, admittedly, to your point, I was skeptical. I remember asking you about that one day, and then you told me all this stuff again. My ears are still ringing, actually.
Yep.
The last time I got yelled at this bell was when I said Mary Todd instead of Mary Lincoln. That's another story.
Because I got schooled in that one time too.
Actually, it's Mary Lincoln. It's not Mary Todd. Please don't call her Mary Todd Lincoln, because that's not right.
I didn't say it like
that.
That's
literally what you said.
Oh my God.
And you even give me a Z snap. You were so fired up about that. I was like, geez.
Snyder asked, did you ever see the Conan O'Brien skit about the
Tony
Civil
went to
War?
Tufts? I didn't know that, man. Oh, Tufts.
What was that?
Tony went to Tufts. Tufts is a great school in Cambridge.
Cool.
A good school.
Snyder said, did you ever see the Conan O'Brien skit about the Civil War? There's a couple of them. There's the one where he does the reenacting and he's got the chapstick, but there's the baseball one too.
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy.
The baseball one is hilarious because there's a plane that flies over, and he's just like, "Lo, what be this demonry?" And he's like pointing at the plane.
That's pretty funny.
And then there's that one girl that he keeps trying to hit on, and he's like, "I saw your husband, and he ran away from the battle. He's a coward." That's
pretty funny.
It's so good.
Tony, you're from Medford? Holy crap! I didn't know that.
Where's
Medford's
that?
Medford's a city just north of Boston. It's actually part of the city. It's where Mary Menounos is from.
Okay. Yep.
It's a cool little place. Some good little bars in Medford, actually, called Medfa. That's the nickname they call it. But
Mike said, go ahead.
I was in Charlestown, that area. But Medford's a cool, right on. That's a fun little place. I didn't realize that. That's pretty cool, actually. I didn't realize Tony was a local.
Oh, that's cool. Look at you hanging out with other New Englanders.
What time we raised the bar in this podcast, Mary, talking to a Boston guy. So I'm talking to this Mountie over here with the Civil War, you know.
I like to think I kind of have a Boston girl sort of attitude, though.
Oh, you do.
Mike said Conan O'Brien has original Lincoln autograph. Yeah, he's like it. It's crazy how into Lincoln he is, and he knows his stuff.
I like it. It's pretty cool. I didn't at first. I was like skeptical, but I mean, if you didn't know that, of course you'd be like, why in the
I
world would you
loved
put
it.
him on?
I was like, thank God they've got somebody on here that
I'll tell you, when Conan O'Brien wrote for The Simpsons, it was none. That was the best time.
it was. He was such a good writer for them. Those are their best episodes.
Jacob raised the bar, Boston. You know who raised the bar, Jacob? Was Adam Vinatieri in that Super Bowl. Remember that? Super Bowl 38. You may remember those days. That was a good day.
Mike said his first deep dive into the Civil War was the 6-volume biography of Lincoln by Carl Sandburg. After slogging through all that, a friend told me the two people who did the most damage to Lincoln were John Wilkes Booth and Carl Sandburg.
Yeah, that's true. You're from Ohio, huh? Ohio, leave that alone. But
okay, someone
Cincinnati.
Said, I don't understand why people don't source Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. I found that very educational and thoughtful. Actually, it was a really good book.
Let me tell you, am I kind of a dick for liking that movie? Because I honestly,
do you like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter too?
Of course,
I love that movie. Why have we not watched it yet?
We've talked about this. You're over here forget. But we've talked about. It's not obviously historically accurate, but it's entertaining.
It's a check your brain at the door.
The fact they make the Confederates all vampires in Gettysburg. It's like, oh yeah.
The book is
the silver bullets.
Better.
Oh god, it's just so well. It's very so entertaining.
Good. It is.
We've talked about this before. The problem is that beer resin in your brain is chewing away a little bit. You're forgetting our conversations. I've had too many of them. That's a problem. That's right. Give me the look. I don't care. Don't do that with your face.
Don't point at me.
Oh god, you suck. But seriously though, but that is a good movie. That is entertaining though.
It is. It's really good. I loved it. I love the first half more than the second half. Like when they get in the Civil War, it kind of goes off the quote unquote rails. But the train scene at the end.
The train scene was really, really cool. But I just like the whole concept of it.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody fired up a whole bowl of pot who knew the Civil War in Lincoln.
Seth Graham-Smith did.
Right. He goes, I'm going to make this fucking movie.
But have you read the book?
I've not read the book.
You need to. The book is the movie's good. It's entertaining. It's the check your brain at the door and just whatever. Don't take it seriously kind of thing. The book is even better. The book is fucking amazing.
I'm definitely going to check out the book here.
David said he went to the Lincoln Memorial University in Harrogate the other day. Great museum. Yeah, I've been wanting to get there. Lincoln Memorial University was founded by Oliver Otis Howard.
See what you did? Can you imagine when we do an episode on Howard, how you're going to be? I'm just going to leave that there.
I'm getting that tattoo in a few weeks.
When are you actually getting that again?
End what is March, the date? March 26th, yeah. I think. 4:00. They haven't called me. Nope. I'm excited.
They're going to spell it wrong. I'm going to laugh my ass off.
Fucker.
They're going to say O-H word, and you're going to have to wear that for the rest of your freaking life, and I'm never going to live that down.
Jesus Christ. Getting it on my right arm, too. I don't know if I'm setting myself up for something there, but
that is bad luck right there, But I mean, I think to your point though, is you can watch these Lincoln things that aren't very historically accurate and still be entertained by them because it's like we talked before, like Al's not on today, but the Civil War Lampoon Facebook site, which is the best Facebook site by far, right? Is
Harrison Hump Day and Howard Hump Day.
Well, right, there you go, right? But all that stuff, you have to know the history to get the jokes.
Yeah.
And so it's fun and it's lighthearted, but it's also smart. It's smart comedy. It just is, right? So if you're not on Civil War Lampoon on Facebook, then shame on you, but you should be because it's just a fun place. It's a fun place. And I was going to say you won't get banned. But speaking of banned, where's Andrea today?
Probably not here, obviously, maybe sleeping. I don't know.
No, she's been sick, so who knows?
Yeah, I'll give her a pass.
Yeah,
Jacob, I don't watch Star Wars for this story.
Well, that was pretty accurate, though. Star Wars.
Yeah,
it was. No, I mean you have to check your brain at the door to your core,
Yep.
right?
And just
To
let
a certain
yourself
point,
be
and just be entertained.
entertained.
If you listen, there are plenty of Coddington, Fonz, Sears books to read if you want the real hardcore stuff. If you want to be entertained, just whatever the hell you do, just do. But I did find the vampire movie fun because it's just
Yep.
there's just enough real history in there. It's you know what it's like. It's like not quite, but it's almost like National Treasure,
Yes.
right? Where National Treasure, there is more truth to that than there's not, and that's the
National Treasure
funny
is my
part about it.
all-time favorite movie.
I
I
mean, too, by far.
like Ben
But
Gates
National,
is far better than Indiana Jones.
there is that's true, that's true.
So
And
same with Robert Langdon.
Robert Langdon, right,
Robert
right,
Langdon is far better
right.
than Indiana
Yeah.
Jones.
But I will tell you that there's no map on the back of the Declaration of Independence, but there's a lot of historical accuracy in that movie that people don't realize. And it's just really, really neat. But that's why you go to watch movies. You can, if you want to watch real life, go sit and watch the news all day, and you can hear about COVID and everything else that sucks, politics. But just entertainment. But if you can get entertainment built into history and learn a little bit from it and be entertained by it, I mean, why wouldn't you?
If it sparks the interest, like Ali B commented that, the Grant series sparked her interest in this, and look at her. Like she's
Allie
so
B is like a
well,
freak of nature, though.
yeah,
Bills.
well, she's so well
Although
read.
I'm
Like
not,
between
I'm not gonna.
her and Ryan and you, I'm gonna go fucking bankrupt with books.
Allie, she broke my heart this week though with those Gettysburg pictures. Though.
I know. Well, same here. Jacob, no, Indiana Jones is the man. Now, Robert Langdon and Ben Gates.
I'm gonna go Ben Gates 1, Robert Langdon 2, Indiana Jones 3, and
Yep.
I liked Indiana Jones. I just think the Langdon, the Da Vinci Code stuff is really well written.
I love
just
that stuff.
But National Treasure's National Treasure.
It
They
is.
gotta make that.
I know. You can
third
watch
thing.
National Treasure though, and National Treasure 2 over and over and over again and never get bored.
Oh, I probably see each of those 100 times.
Oh,
easy.
me too. And it's actually National Treasure is one of my dad's favorite movies.
Well, my friend Emily named her kid Riley after Riley Poole. That's how much she's into that, and she's a worse than we are with that movie. She's
Allie B said we were there in spirit. Thank you.
We were there in spirit, but she, it's but we'll be there soon. We'll be there soon.
Yeah. Snyder said National Treasure was fun, and Sean Bean didn't even die. That's true. Sean Bean.
Yeah, he got arrested in Boston like many other people I know.
There's another movie that Sean Bean doesn't die in, and it's Troy, and that's because he plays Odysseus, and he's like the storyteller of it all.
But he has a tough time in Game of Thrones. Sean Bean
loses his head.
Yeah, I'd say right in front of his full family. That's not good.
But yeah, Abraham Lincoln Vampire is a fun movie.
It's a movie. It's fun. It's entertaining.
I heard so many people in the Civil War and Lincoln community just criticize it. And it's like, could you not just and if we like it, so what?
It's all entertainment. It's all entertainment. Benjamin. Hey, Ben. We have not discussed the Sultana.
No.
We'll talk about that though at some point. But that's another crappy story.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that one for sure.
Just reading this. That's pretty cool though. Pretty neat. Did you get your COVID shot today? Good. Smart man.
Awesome.
Smart man. I won't be getting mine anytime soon.
Neither will I.
Joshua Gates should mention some that's a good show too.
I've never seen it before.
Expedition Unknown. He just travels around in business stuff. It's pretty cool. He's John, no, you're Jim, but he's Josh Gates is another Boston guy. He's a local guy too. Everything starts here, Mary. Everything starts here. Works its way west.
Now I feel like watching Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, and National Treasure. I know we've been watching Mad Men, but I need a break from that show. It's too.
Jacob, you're more of a TAPS guy? You mean Atlantic Paranormal? TAPS? Ghost Hunters?
I'm into that too.
I know somebody, Mary, who was trained by them and has gone out with them.
I do too.
Mm-hmm.
I know a couple Ghost Hunters.
Who left them before they went on TV.
Oh, it's your loss, isn't it?
It's okay.
Who left them before they went on TV.
It's fucking
but no, getting back to the whole Lincoln documentary has been really good. I've been recommending it to people to watch.
Yeah, it's fun.
Into Abraham Lincoln and kind of just, I don't know. the whole, like, there's some people being really critical of it. I love the fact that they said, though, that they really made it clear that Lincoln, just because he wanted to abolish slavery, did not mean he thought they were his equals.
Again, history, it's a different time though. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we were saying the other morning, Mary, the way that African American people were looked at back then, it's just different. I mean, you're coming off Dred Scott, where they're saying that
Mhm.
3/4 of a human,
Yeah.
and I mean, that's how people thought, and
Mhm.
it just I'm not going to sit here and give Lincoln a pass for it, but it's not people. It's tough to judge people in the 19th century with 21st century thinking. You just can't do it.
Yeah, but you also can't say that he was like for equal rights, because
No,
he
he wasn't. He was not He was not MLK. He wasn't. Okay, he
no,
wasn't. In
he was on
any
a fucking
stretch,
committee for
you know.
colonization when he lived in Springfield. And I've heard the word cherry picking thrown around a little bit regarding the stuff that they're doing with the CNN series. They're not. They're using his words to say this is what he meant. Yes, when he was president, his thoughts changed, and his last speech talked about, you know, giving African Americans the right to vote and all that, which is awesome. Like, it's great to see how he grew as a person. He stepped away from that colonization thing and all that. That's really awesome. But you have to add that there was a time where, he did not believe they were equals.
Well, I mean, no one did though, and that's the whole part about it was he's on record of saying that he doesn't care if slavery ends or not to keep the Union together. And you talk about those speeches before. I mean, before the war, look, he did a million great things, but he was
Yep.
not he was not
He's not perfect.
all these great civil rights people who came later.
Hmm.
Okay, uh, was more significant. But you know what though? A lot of what MLK did and guys like that, all the stuff they did were based on what Lincoln did because of the
Exactly.
war. So,
Lincoln
so
helped pave the way.
by no means am I saying Lincoln was some kind of whatever, but it was a different time. But he did a lot. He obviously did a lot of great things for that.
Mhm.
Um, the biggest crime, and this is where John Wilkes Booth is the enemy with this, is he denied. I'm pointing you again, by the way.
Stop pointing at me. Did you not
He
point?
he denied the country from coming out of the Civil War to a point of real reconstruction.
Yep.
Right. And this is where you wonder if a Hannibal Hamlin had still been in charge, how things would have differed if he didn't pick fucking Andrew Johnson of all
Oh,
fucking
that
people.
was
But you know what though? No, seriousness. Uh, he wasn't gonna. It didn't matter. He wasn't gonna lose the election in the North with
no,
Hannibal. So why did he replace him?
because he in his mind, he had to have a Democrat that could bridge that gap for Reconstruction. And that was why he picked him.
No,
And
no, I know why he picked him. That's what I mean. But just psychologically thinking, I guess no one thinks he's going to get shot.
well, exactly. I
But
think had he known he was going to get shot, he would not have picked him.
he should have found. He should have. I mean, you know why? Oh, Mary Todd there. Sorry, I called her Mary Todd, by the way. I could fucking yell that again. But she should have, from her seance, and she should have told him. And he was having dreams of being shot all the time, right? Assassinated. He should have thought about it. Hey, Al, what's going on, man? We were actually just talking about
Hey,
you.
Al.
We're trying to drum up a membership in the Civil War Lampoon. We were talking about you a few minutes ago. So glad you hit the bat
Yeah,
signal.
nice to
Must have
see you,
gone.
Al.
But I guess that's where the real crime was he denied Booth did of how the country could have healed from this, and the country still hasn't healed from this.
No, it hasn't.
All the shit going on here that you see today with the Ty Sedgwick book talks about is all because of the Lincoln assassination, how it cut everything short. That's what it was.
Well, it's funny, when I was dropping my mom's gift off to her, the Robert E. Lee and Me book, she actually said, this is very timely because your father and I have been watching a show about Reconstruction. And I said, so what do you think of that? And she was like, I did not realize what a shit show it was. Like, she had no idea. And she was like, and she actually asked me, she's like, why did he choose Andrew Johnson? I'm like, I don't have the time right now to tell you.
Of all the people he could have picked, I mean, seriously.
It was meant for show. It was meant to have that, to get more votes, because he was very scared about losing the election. He was.
Jimmy, you joke about it. I said Mary Todd to her one time, and I thought she was going to legitimately kill me. You know what
He's
I'm talking
exaggerating.
about. No.
You fucker.
But you call me.
Did you almost just call me?
What? I said Mary Todd, and you went off. It's funny he mentions that, but I got psychological scarring from that one.
Oh, fuck off.
Okay, well, hey, there you go. See, it brings it right out. But it is pretty funny. But yeah, so it's Mary Lincoln. So never again. You can't see the T word. The T word's not allowed in this establishment.
Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob said,
I was praying at Jesus that day.
Whatever. Jacob said, give me more Johnson touring around Tennessee and threatening people with guns on a podium.
Yeah.
Johnson, and too, like, Johnson and Stanton obviously don't get along. And then there you have like Sherman's surrender and what Stanton does to him. Like Lincoln getting shot, like absolutely Booth robbed, not just the country at that time, but
Booth shooting Lincoln
involved.
robbed this country of healing out of the Civil War. So that open wound is still there, and it still gets, the scab gets picked every single day, and it's still going on. All the stuff going on today, I'm telling you, is all because of the assassination. And that's what Booth robbed this country of. Mm-hmm. Not so much of a president, but the ability to heal from the Civil War. Now, you look at these countries like, Ryan, England, there's been civil wars everywhere. Yeah. But the healing does happen. Here it hasn't.
No,
because it was not allowed to. It's not allowed to.
Yeah, because Eric Foner has a good book on Reconstruction, and then Heather Cox Richardson explains all this Civil War and Reconstruction history well, and how it folds into current events today. So there's some book enabling going on. Eric says, without Johnson, though, do we get congressional Reconstruction, which was radical in a good way?
I mean, was it though? I mean, you had that patronage system that was put in was basically slavery again.
Well, and I'm gonna put myself out there.
Oh, here we go.
Howard. So it was the anniversary a few days ago of the Freedmen's Bureau being established, which was run by Howard. Johnson thought Howard was a radical and a maniac when it came to African Americans, and he made it so tough for him. I can't imagine being Howard in that position and just being like, "Fuck."
Yeah.
And Howard, if you read his memoirs, he's clearly a guy that was ahead of his time in how he thought about African Americans and what he wanted for them. Like Howard's a guy who was, his best friend growing up was the son of a freed slave.
Yeah. Well,
and his dad took this guy who had run away with his son in, and he worked for his dad, and Howard was friends with the boy, and Howard didn't see any difference between him, didn't see the skin color kind of thing, and just was like, he was just my friend growing up. And I think Howard's time in the Freedmen's Bureau, he wasn't able to get as much done because of Johnson.
That's true. And Mike Jenkins mentions Heather Cox Richardson, who's a great Twitter follow, by the way. Heather Cox Richardson.
Yeah, she is. She's genius. Very good.
I think she's a Boston person, by the way.
Everybody's from Boston.
But she talks about that.
Boston in another life.
No. Lucky also. But I mean, but she does a really good job. But again, it's all, and someone mentioned here before about how they won the war and lost the peace. And it reminds me a little bit, not exactly about how the United States helped win World War II, but somehow lost the peace to the Soviet Union, Stalin, right? Mm-hmm. Where they allowed the Soviets to come in from the East to take all that Eastern Europe, and they never left. So they found themselves getting pantsed by Stalin. I think Lincoln being assassinated, that and not enough people study this. People study up to the assassination. They talk about Booth. They talk about the escape.
They don't see the repercussions.
But the political repercussions of that assassination is significantly more than the assassination.
Exactly.
Itself.
Yeah, and that's what Mark. I think did you mention Mark's comment that he? Yeah. That's exactly what.
Yeah.
He's with that.
That's literally what I just said.
I know.
So I'm just gonna sit here and pay attention.
But no, not and two, if you look at when Sherman found out about the assassination, it was on April 17th as he was going to talk to Johnston about the surrender terms, and he got the telegram saying that Lincoln had been assassinated. It's been a few days, and Sherman said to the guy that brought him the telegram, said, "Do not speak of this at all, because this is going to fire the troops up." And he told Johnston, and Johnston said, "This is the worst thing that could have ever happened."
Yeah, I mean,
And that Jeff Davis said the same thing.
Jefferson Davis. They all, to a man. I'm sure a dick like Jubal Early probably thought it was the greatest thing in the world. But I mean, as far as a lot of the Davis, Lee, Joseph Johnston, those guys, they probably were like, oh shit, because they got lucky. I mean, you think about it. It could have been, they could have gone the other way, because Lincoln was going to gave them all really good terms, and Lee knew it, Johnston knew it, Davis knew it, that if we just quit and walk away, they're going to let us go away from
exactly. And that's what Sherman went into that surrender meeting with that news, and that's the first thing he tells Johnston, and Johnston's just like, we're fucked. We are fucked. And then Sherman gives him the terms. He's like, this is what Lincoln wanted. This is what we're going to do. And then he sends it to Washington, and Stanton and Johnson are like, fuck that. And Grant sends it back and says, nope. And Sherman's like, the fuck, this is the same thing that you gave Lee. So then he has to go back and tell Johnston, and dude, we might have to fight. And that's the last thing either of them want to do. They're just like, can we just be through this? But that was Stanton, who is probably the historical figure I hate more than anybody else.
More than Tom Brady?
Tom Brady's a little bit above Stanton.
You speak nice of Tom Brady. Up until this last year, I don't know, dead to me, but it's another story.
But no, he like Sherman just gets ripped for his surrender terms, which are exactly what Lincoln wanted, because Lincoln told him that on that meeting they had in the River Queen at City Point.
No, and Jim's point, the assassination to this day is being felt, and you could see it. You could see it. American politics, American culture, American everything. Everything goes back to that, because it's like a broken bone that happened in 1865 that was never allowed to heal.
No,
that's unfortunately what the legacy was.
Yeah,
I mean, Lincoln, if he'd have survived, who knows what would have happened? But you probably would have had 3.5 more years of help, letting them up soft, without much of the animosity. Johnson didn't let that happen. He got involved in his impeachment, but he wanted to get rid of Stanton, led to the impeachment. It caused all this goddamn problem. You had the John Surratt trial happen in the middle of it. That was
everything's a
shit
show.
And
you have Johnson saying, like, you have Johnson making things like the Freedmen's Bureau could have been a really awesome thing. Johnson makes life hard for Howard, who's trying to make life better for these people that have been freed slaves. And he's saying that about Howard, like, this guy's a fucking radical and he's insane when it comes to the African Americans. Like, this would, like, I mean, I think had Lincoln known, again, Lincoln is picking Johnson with short term in mind, not what if I get shot and this guy has to take over.
Well, I'll tell you who thought he was going to eventually take over was going to be Stanton. And he died young, luckily, because, I mean, he died around 1870 or so, right around there.
Yeah, just right after his appointment to the Supreme Court.
So he died not long after Robert E. Lee did then.
Yeah,
right?
I think he was appointed to the Supreme Court and he died before. Maybe I'm getting that wrong and mixing.
It was right around 1870. I mean, I could be.
Yeah, it was.
Right around 70, right around there.
Stanton had a lot of like health issues, I think, but we're talking about doing episodes about the Lincoln Cabinet Rail Splitter on the Lincoln Cabinet. I'm not going to be nice to Stanton. I don't like him at all.
Oh, Jeremy's going to give you shit.
He might.
Good luck with him. Good luck with him. Good luck with old Jeremy. Good luck.
I just don't like Stanton.
No, Stanton sucks. He does. He sucks. But again, my whole thing with how the Surratt trial, Mary Surratt, I got my own issue with Stanton. Don't get me going with that with Stanton. But yeah, Mike, I mentioned April 65 is a great book. That's a fantastic one of my all-time favorite books.
Yeah, Jacob mentions After Appomattox, Ghosts of the Confederacy, Wars of Reconstruction. Yeah, there's a lot of good, and I think Reconstruction, like you said, like you made a really good point. Bask in that one for a little bit. Yeah, you go, fucker.
I'm just going to sit here and enjoy myself being right. Go ahead. I'm listening. You got my attention.
It doesn't get talked about enough. It's like the assassination happens, the escape, and then they don't talk about the repercussions of it.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I get asked a lot by, my Canadian friends is, why is shit so effed up down there at times with the statues? Yeah, that's really what they say.
They feel like, we're the ones down here. We're the crazy people in the first floor apartment making all the noise. You guys are upstairs pounding on the thing. Shut up! That's who we are down here. But it's funny.
But I
Hey,
say
Eric.
it goes back to the Lincoln assassination. Hey, Eric, William Marvel also hates him in his book, Lincoln's Autocrat. That's right.
I don't think anybody likes Stanton, though. I mean, to be totally honest, I mean, he was someone who was very much into Stanton. He put on a good face.
Sickles, but then Mary Surratt he fucks over.
Well, you know who else fucked her over was Hancock, Mary.
Oh, I know. That's one reason I don't like Hancock very much.
There's a lot of people who did her dirty, no question.
Yeah. Lou Wallace.
Well, yeah, Wallace told me yes, but
he was sitting drawing during the trial.
There was no way there was no way anyone in that trial was getting off. Okay,
no,
they were all going to be guilty, and he knew it. The fact of the matter is, she was convicted to die. They were going to overturn it, and they had the votes to overturn it because 5 of those justices of the 9, 5 were going to go back and overturn it. And Stanton took that thing and he stuck it in the drawer, gave it to Johnson, and Johnson stuck it in his drawer, and he goes, I didn't see it. Because what was funny about Mary Surratt, another Mary, is so many Marys, but the problem with that was he ended up, there was so much public animosity towards Mary Surratt before the execution.
Yeah.
But then when she got executed, it went the other way. They were like, what do you mean you killed a woman? It was a complete 180. And now Johnson had this piece of paper that says that she can go life in prison, which probably would have been 4 years at Tortugas, probably, because they all got off, they all got released.
Go spend some time with Dr. Mudd.
Exactly. So he had this piece of paper that said that she, to overturn it, stuck in his drawer because public sentiment was they wanted her to die. Then she dies, and it goes the other way. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to take this piece of paper and I'm going to roll it up. I'm going to toss it and say I never saw it. And that's what he did. Right?
It's horrible.
Yeah.
I would like to think that maybe someday it'll be revisited and she'll get her name cleared, but probably not.
It's always funny when you wonder if one of these presidents are going to pardon someone like Mary Surratt. That would take some balls.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Lee got pardoned.
Yeah. I've got a couple relatives who are lawyers. I want them to read Assassin's Accomplice and tell me what they think. I want their opinion.
Ooh, that's one of our book club books, Mary.
It is.
Ooh.
Yeah, look at me.
Definitely. Well, I guess we probably should shut down here pretty soon. Almost 12:30. This is a long one. That's what she said.
This is as long as we usually go. That's what she said.
Yeah, I think so. So this is good though. We have a lot of stuff coming down the pike we talk about. So we are going to do Bensonville next week and talk about Carolina again. Carolina on our mind. And we'll do that. So, but again, if you missed it, very exciting news. We are talking about our roundtable next week. We're doing a trivia contest.
Well, 2 weeks from
2 weeks, whenever it is. Okay, I don't know.
St. Patrick's Day.
The St. Patty's Day, the 17th of March. Our usual third Wednesday of the month is St. Patty's Day. We're going to do a St. Patty's Day Civil War Breakfast Club extravaganza.
Yep.
And we're going to do a trivia contest, and there will be prizes. There'll be books, courtesy of the Lincoln Bookstore in Chicago. Our friend Bjorn.
Yep.
We will turn those out, so we'll have fun with that. And libations are suggested because it is St. Patty's Day. So please imbibe. You will have fun with that.
Yeah.
And then the book club the following week.
Well, 2 weeks after that, it's the 31st.
See,
this is why I do the schedule. I do all the scheduling for us.
I thought, okay. How many, like 9 Wednesdays in March?
There's 9 Wednesdays in March. Okay. Thank God we didn't do dry. Thank God we are not doing dry March, because that would be.
That's over.
That did not fucking happen.
But we are going to, the books are fun. We got to, and I got to give credit to Bjorn, because he sent me this box of books.
Yeah.
And we've got a bunch of books. We got a bunch of Lincoln bookmarks. We'll give these things out. All kinds of, he hooked us up. And so we're going to give those books away with the contest winners for the trivia. We'll have fun with the trivia. It'll be some good trivia. We'll have fun with that. See if I can stump you on some of this trivia. See if you need. Even the stuff that the Civil War fangirl doesn't even know.
There was someone on, Nicholas said that he'll be back in a couple of weeks because he's going to be with Ogden and Powell at Chickamauga next weekend. That's where we were supposed to be there.
What are we doing?
Yeah, no, Nicholas said that he's going to be at Chickamauga next weekend because that's when Al's doing his, not Al, Ed is doing the tour.
Oh, that's right.
We were supposed to be there
this weekend.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was our weekend. We were supposed to be there. Fucking pandemic. Next year.
God, I forgot all about that. Right. It was March, wasn't it? Next year.
Yeah, next year, exactly.
The world will be different next March. I promise you that.
Yeah, it will be. But yeah, so if anybody on here has not been to our roundtable before, just send us an email at info@civilwarbreakfastclub.com and I will make sure you get the Zoom invite for that. It's always a great time. Everybody on there's a lot of fun.
It's very laid back. It's just like this, except everybody's on.
Yep, we swear.
So we'll have to find. Mary's going to have to keep track of the winners.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. But that'll be fun. We're going to work on our questions. We'll do, what do we say, 4 rounds of 5 questions each?
Yep, something like
1861,
that.
2, 3, and 4, 5, something like that.
Yep. And the reason we decided to do that is you guys are so well versed in like all years of the Civil War. You have someone like Ryan who he's like early years, he knows his shit, and then you have like Allie who's all like all the years and all that. So we just wanted to make it just random. They're not necessarily going to be Irish based, but there probably will be some Irish questions in there.
Well, let's have fun with that. It'll be a lot of fun. But we've been sort of talking about doing a trivia thing for a while. So the trivia thing will be a lot of fun, and we'll see how that goes. And we'll mix it up a little bit. It's not going to be a layup. We'll do some tough questions in there. We'll have to go deep into our recesses of our minds, come up with questions. So we'll have fun with that. But definitely dress in your Irish clothes, wear something green.
Yep.
And do have fun with that. So that's.
I've already got my shirt for it too.
I've seen your shirt you're gonna wear for it. That's very thrilling. Okay.
Mrs. Marzone. Showed it to my friend and he was like, Mrs. Meagers? And I'm like, it's Meager.
We'll have fun with that. So all right. So I think we can ready to jump off here. We'll call it a day. It's 12:30. So people want to go back to their normal lives and live a normal and fruitful life. But if you have not signed up for the Zoom, for the roundtable or the book club, please do, because the more the merrier, okay?
Yeah.
So it's info@civilwarbreakfastclub.com. We are doing the roundtable and trivia contest on the 17th. And 2 weeks later, we are doing our book club we've been talking about since they started writing books, apparently. 1,000 years ago, we've been talking about this. And we're going to talk about that. And we'll have some surprises for that as well.
Awesome Dropkick Murphys. I love those guys.
Oh, goodness.
Was that who you had in your Insta story last night?
Yeah, they said they did a rock version of the Boston College Fight song.
Yeah,
and so since they won Hockey East last night and they beat Auburn in baseball,
and Bruins won last night too. That was an awesome game.
Bruins are good. It's
5-0. Yeah, see, I don't have any Bruins, but Gary Doak from my town played for the Bruins for a number of years.
I have a hockey stick about Gary Doak.
He died of cancer a few years ago. Found that out from
they could bring everybody down for no reason.
I asked my mom last night because apparently she's.
You want to come over here and kick the cat while you're moving?
I love Butler, and I haven't seen him in a long time. He used to send me pictures of him all the time.
He's around. He's Butler. Anyway, so that's there's be a lot of good stuff coming. So I know we got another week. We'll do this again next week before we have that. But I'm really looking forward to that round.
Me too.
That is going to be a lot of fun because you know what? That's going to be our St. Patty's Day party. That's going to be it.
Exactly, because we're all stuck at home and all that, and so it's a great way to get together and hang out with everybody too. I really enjoy the round tables. It'll
be very laid back, very historical, very fun, very laid back, and hopefully everybody enjoys it. So, all right, so off we go. So, Mary, the pleasure again was all yours. And we will look forward to talking to you soon as we get ready for Bentonville. We'll record that on Tuesday and get ready for the next one. So everybody else have do it. But definitely, and yeah, don't listen. It's Bar. I just read your message.
Yep.
We're not going to make this trivia thing is not going to be battlefield guide stuff. Okay,
No.
we'll have some easy ones. Well, it's for everybody. So there's gonna be some basic ones in there, and it's gonna be some challenging ones. But we're not gonna trust me. I'll tell you, most people here should know most of them. So we'll have fun with it. So
yeah, it's
don't
just
feel,
for fun anyway. So
do not feel even for a second overwhelmed by it. It's all in good fun.
Yeah,
but we are giving away
just,
books. Mary.
Yeah,
we are giving away books.
We just are here to have fun with everybody and all that. And so yeah, everybody have a great weekend, and thank you for spending some of your Saturday with us. It really means a lot to us that you guys take time out of your day for this, especially those of you who are like Jim. I know you get up for this, and Ryan's over in England and all that. It's really awesome. We really appreciate the support.
We appreciate it, because otherwise it'd be me and you talking, and it drives me crazy after a while. So it's fun.
Fucker.
It's all good. Anyway, guys, have a great rest of the weekend, and we will look forward to talking to you guys. But thanks for jumping on, and we look forward to seeing you all, as they say, on the other side.
See you guys later.
All right, peace out, guys. Have a safe weekend.
Yep. Bye.